Chapter 216. This world of escape was huge and it stretched as far as the eye could see. This was a small world which General E had specially prepared, and it was very rich in spirit chi. As soon as everyone entered the small world, they slowly rose up along with the power of the array, and finally stopped about 5,000 meters above the ground. Looking with his heavenly eye, Wang Ling noticed the boundary pillar at the center of the small world. At the very top of the boundary pillar was a flat top, and there were a lot of rugged mountain paths around it. Wang Ling realized that these paths had been designed to allow people to reach the top of the mountain. If they had a long-range magic treasure, the top of the boundary pillar would be a very advantageous ambush position. Outside the boundary pillar was an urban area with all kinds of high-rise buildings and imitation landmarks. In addition, Wang Ling also noticed that beyond the horizon of the small world, at the farthest point that his heavenly eye could reach, there was a thick black fog entrenched beyond the horizon. This thick fog was not Yao Qi. It was also a form of elimination in the competition system. After everyone landed on the ground, the thick black fog would begin to slowly shrink. If there was anyone who was obsessed with fighting or had forgotten about collecting magic treasures, there was a high chance that they would be swallowed up by the black fog, and the pocket world would automatically judge them as eliminated. Therefore, this military training exercise not only tested the students' adaptability, but it also taught the students how to control themselves. The foundation building stage was the entry stage of cultivation, and for cultivators who had just entered, the biggest taboo was greed. Tens of thousands of people were scattered in the vast sky, scattered in various positions. Wang Ling looked around casually and saw many of his schoolmates and the Alliance Army from number 59 high school. Wang Ling looked around but didn't see any sign of his dumbass brother. Even Super Chen and the others had been teleported to who knew where. It didn't matter, Wang Ling rubbed his brow. In any case, he just needed to lay low in this competition like Teacher Pan had said. Wang Ling didn't want to fight anyone, because he knew that the group in the surveillance room outside could detect every student's movements through radar. Wang Ling didn't want to be too obvious. After a long while, Wang Ling sensed the fluctuations of the array again, and all the people who had been frozen in the sky started to fall. In the end, Wang Ling landed steadily on a barren desert. This was the least populated place, and he could avoid most of the students participating in the competition. Of course, Wang Ling wasn't the only one who had thought of this. There were more than 100 people who had chosen to land in the desert outside the city. The competition in the center of the city was the fiercest. It was very likely that as soon as they landed, they would start fighting over the magic treasures. The people who chose to live in the desert were all afraid of being turned into boxes the moment they landed. According to the rules of the competition, after being judged to be eliminated by the small world, the surviving person could pick up all the magic treasures on the eliminated person's body. Let's see what's around us first, Wang Ling sighed in his heart. Although more than 100 people had landed in the desert, he had yet to find any trace of them. The environment of the desert was quite harsh. The temperature was more than 30 degrees Celsius higher than the center of the city, and there was an endless sandstorm. There wasn't even a single weed. It was dead silent. If he couldn't find any magic weapons like flying swords that he could control here, and the black fog outside the horizon just happened to spread here, from here to the center of the city, the people in the desert would undoubtedly die. Just as he was about to set out to search the area, the sand in front of him suddenly caved in, and a hole the size of a person appeared. Then, accompanied by a human-sized spirit light, Wang Ming actually climbed out of the hole. An Earth Escape Talisman? Wang Ming tugged at his windproof glasses, which hurt a little. As expected, I'm still not very used to using spirit talismans. This Earth Escape Talisman isn't very suitable in the sand. If I'm not careful, I might be buried before I can climb out. Wang Ling stared at the sand hole and pondered deeply. Didn't this guy have no spirit energy? How could he use a spirit talisman? I brought my team here this time, and I'm the only one who can't use spirit energy. But, generally gave me this. Saying this, Wang Ming took out a golden talisman from his pants and smiled evilly. General E personally made this talisman, and it's connected to the source of his spirit energy. As long as I carry this golden talisman on me, I can also use magic treasures. But the golden talisman also has a time limit, which is only for a few days. Your brother I have finally turned the tables today. Wang Ling. Saying this, Wang Ming pulled open his sleeve to reveal his wristwatch. This was a wristwatch that only staff members had. In order to avoid the possibility of students communicating with each other, the wristwatch had already been filtered out before they had been teleported in through the array. I blocked your signal just now so you don't have to worry about your movements being monitored by the people outside. Also look. Wang Ming used the wristwatch to make a simple setting, and a round disc appeared in the air. This was actually a radar. Ling, there seems to be a lot of people nearby. Do you want to ambush them and collect their parcels? Saying this, Wang Ming patted Wang Ling on the shoulder and smiled brightly, revealing his white teeth. Don't worry, big brother will protect you. Wang Ling was startled. You're just a maintenance staff member, why are you playing around? The two brothers walked forward, crossed a sand dune, and found a few scattered cacti in the desert up ahead. The desert was so hot that there wasn't even a single weed in the area Wang Ling had been in before. For a few cacti to appear here could already be considered a unique sight in the desert. The two of them hid behind the extremely unscientifically large cacti for about 30 minutes, but didn't find a single trace of anyone. Although they were very far away, Wang Ling could already hear the fierce exchange of gunfire in the center of the city, which was the sound of various magic weapons colliding. In less than half an hour since they had entered the small world, around several hundred people had already been eliminated. The number of people remaining was clearly written in the air above the plateau of the boundary pillar, 9,723, and it was still decreasing. But there wasn't the slightest movement in this desert. If it wasn't for the fact that he could still sense these people's auras, and if it wasn't for the fact that Wang Ming could still see the marks on the radar, he would never have thought that there would actually be over 100 people here. The most important thing was that this was a desert. The worst place in the entire small world. After another hour or so, Wang Ling raised his head and saw that the desert was still howling with wind and sand. Above his head were scattered clouds, and there wasn't even an ant as far as the eye could see. Chapter 217. Ever since he was a child, Wang Ming had never experienced what it felt like to operate a magic treasure with his own hands. For him, this was actually a rare opportunity. Unfortunately, he had already run into a wall before he could launch his counterattack. This bunch of people were really too good at hiding. For a whole hour and a half, there wasn't even the slightest bit of movement. Even the red dot on the radar hadn't moved at all. So it turned out that they were all planning to stay put and wait for the express delivery to be snatched. Furthermore, there wasn't a single magic treasure on the ground as far as the eye could see. This location was too bad, it was simply terrifyingly poor. Time flowed differently in the small world. Although the military training exercise this time was going to last 3 days, that was in accordance with the flow of time in the outside world. If they really had to find a place to hide until the poisonous fog continued to shrink, they would at least be able to make it into the top 100. They had to think of a way to do something. This was too boring. Wang Ling knew that as a mad scientist, his cousin had never been someone who could stay idle. Just as this dumbass elder brother was sighing in his heart about how boring it was, there was suddenly a flash of spirit light in the distance, and a square box slowly descended. An airdrop? Maybe there's something good inside. Wang Ming said, according to the law of checks and balances in this exercise, this desert should be the place with the least magic treasures, so if an airdrop lands, the things inside will definitely be very valuable. Talismans, elixirs, maybe even snacks. Wang Ling, wait, snacks. Wang Ming cupped his chin as he looked at Wang Ling and smiled. I was the one who came up with the idea of snacks. When I made the airdrop, I wanted to put a gift bag of snacks inside which will help ease the loneliness of waiting. Oh, that's right, there are crispy noodle snacks in the gift bag, want to take a look? For some reason, Wang Ling, who had been indifferent to this survival contest from the very beginning, suddenly felt a little excited. It had to be said that Wang Ming's move was very brilliant. Since he had a goal, Wang Ming realized that Wang Ling was a lot more serious than his previous indifferent attitude. Previously, he had clearly been too lazy to even open his heavenly eye, but now he kept it open the entire time as he worked hard to advance in the direction of the airdrop. Wang Ming knew that it actually wasn't easy to see Wang Ling maintain his heavenly eye for a long time. Wang Ling's heavenly eye was a little special. When he activated it, his pupils would glow with a different kind of splendor, which would gradually turn golden, and in the end, look like 3 golden flowers that were slightly spread apart. It was as if he had wearing contact lenses. He was so handsome that he had no friends. Wang Ming remembered seeing the heavenly eye in its complete form when he and Wang Ling had played hide-and-seek as kids. Who would have thought that after so many years, it would feel like a lifetime had passed since he saw it again? Wang Ming was well aware that there was a trace of envy, but even more nostalgia. In his heart, Wang Ling knew very well that it a little bit of envy but even more nostalgia. Wang Ming often thought that if he had developed the Dao Talisman seal back then earlier, he might have been a lot more cheerful than he was now. At the very least, he wouldn't have been so antisocial. The airdrop's location is just ahead. Wang Ming pointed in a certain direction. Previously, he hadn't carefully probed this desert with his spiritual senses. Actually, it wasn't like there was nothing wrong with it. There was still a designated landmark. Wang Ling didn't choose to directly teleport, but approached it bit by bit, because he could already smell a conspiracy from afar. Wang Ling didn't choose to directly teleport, but instead approached it bit by bit. Even from a distance he could already smell a conspiracy. There was definitely someone lying in ambush at the location of the airdrop. If he suddenly teleported over, this kind of bug-like skill would appear here. It wouldn't be good if he was reported as a cheat. As far as the eye could see, the ruins were surrounded by rubble. The broken walls were very high, and there was a huge stone array and several ancient stone palaces inside. Wang Ming chose to bypass the front of the ruins and go in from the side. The front was directly under the sun, and it was really too conspicuous to walk under it. There was a huge stone wall on the side, and entering from the shadows was a good choice. But they hadn't gone far when Wang Ming immediately stopped when he noticed a red dot on the radar behind the stone wall up ahead. The brother in front, come out, I can already see you. Wang Ling really couldn't help complaining in his heart. This radar was really too heaven-defying. Actually, the person behind the stone wall had hidden himself pretty well. Wang Ling felt that if anyone else had passed by, they might not have realized that there was someone hiding behind it. A moment later, Super Chin walked out from behind the stone wall with his hands raised. Second brother is really amazing, you could even find me when I was hiding so well. So it's you. Wang Ming stared at the cushion in Super Chen's hands with an astonished expression. Is this a prayer mat? And it's an 8th grade prayer mat. Super Chin smiled. I found it while I was looking for you. I sensed second brother's aura from afar. You're pretty lucky to have picked up an 8th grade prayer mat so quickly. Wang Ming had an astonished expression on his face, because this was probably the best perception-type magic treasure in the survival contest this time. The students here were all at the foundation establishment stage, so their spiritual senses had a limited range. But as long as they sat on this praying mat and used their senses, their range would increase by 50 times. With this 8th grade prayer mat, it was like having a walking radar. Have you seen anyone else? Wang Ming asked. I came from the outskirts and saw a few people on my way here. Most of them are now moving in groups. I haven't seen Peanut and Dopey yet, I don't know where they've run off to, Super Chin answered honestly. By the way, do you and second brother lack anything? I picked up a lot of things on my way here. As he spoke, Super Chin took out a small golden brocade pouch, which startled Wang Ming again. An 8th grade storage bag? Where did you find it? This was the storage magic treasure with the largest storage space in the entire survival contest. If you wanted to survive long enough in this contest, it was very important to find a magic treasure with a large storage space. The larger the storage space, the more resources you could store on the map. Staring at this 8th grade storage bag, Wang Ming couldn't help sucking in a cold breath. This guy's luck was too good. He was simply full of luck. Didn't I pick up something on the way here? Super Chin scratched his head and said a little embarrassedly, on my way here, I noticed 2 groups of people exchanging fire. The Shao clan disciples from God Vision High School seemed to have slipped and blew up their teammates. Then, a God Vision High School boy was being chased by a group of girls with knives. Wang Ming frowned. Internal strife? I don't think so, it should be a relationship dispute. Super Chin thought for a while and then said in alarm, I think I heard someone call that guy Brother Ching, Wang Ling. Chapter 218. On the plateau at the top of the boundary pillar, the old devil reappeared in Jiang Yuyue's body. Looking at the vast small world, he was a little excited. I finally made it in, I'm one step closer to the success of my master plan. Lord Devil Emperor, there are people monitoring the survival contest outside this time, and it seems that more than 100 people have entered the small world to protect the students. Is this really okay? Jiang Luyue raised her doubts in the stone ghost mask. Before entering this small world, I wrapped the purple gold gourds mist around my body, so this small world couldn't sense me at all. Given the strength of that bunch of juniors, they can't sense my aura at all. The old devil sneered. Furthermore, my venerable self believes that my decision this time is simply a blessing from the heavens. Not only can this small world not sense my existence, I can also wantonly absorb the spirit energy here, using the array guiding flag to transfer the array to open the gate between worlds, and then activating the ancient array to absorb vitality chi to reconstruct the skeleton and flesh body. All of this consumed a huge amount of spirit energy. My venerable self had been worried that I wouldn't be able to keep up with the spirit energy, but now there's no need to worry at all. When my venerable self recovers my body, I'll come find you. On the boundary pillar, the old devil took a deep breath, and a spirit light rose from his hand. Through the stone ghost mask, Jiang Luiyue saw a jade pendant in the shape of a crescent moon appear in the old devil's palm. Lord Devil Emperor, this is, my venerable self's first love gave me this pendant. The old devil stared at the pendant, his eyes unexpectedly soft as water. Unfortunately, she died 1,000 years ago. My venerable self sealed her body in ice. Hearing this, Jiang Luiyue was a little astonished. She had never thought that this old devil would actually be a Casanova. My venerable self had been looking for a way to resurrect her all this time. Just as I found a reliable plan, I was targeted by that Yi Jianchuan guy, and we fought fiercely for several days. This directly drained my spirit energy, and it took me a very long time to recover my spirit energy. My resurrection has been delayed ever since. The old devil gripped the crescent moon pendant in his hand. To completely resurrect her, my venerable self needs to operate the wheel of time and find her reincarnation. Speaking up to this point, the old devil looked at the stone ghost mask. When the time comes, I might need your help. After a moment of silence, Jiang Luiyue replied, if Lord Devil Emperor has a request, this junior will definitely fulfill it. That's good. The old devil nodded and looked at the number of people in the sky. There were now less than 9,300 left. He needed to set up the Vitality Chi absorption array as soon as possible. Otherwise, the number of people would only decrease. But before that, a good cover was equally important. Looking at the dwindling number of people, the old devil took a deep breath. Then let's open the gate between worlds first. We don't have much time left. He looked around and found a large desert in the northwest. The ruins there seemed to be not bad. It's hidden enough. Let's open the gate between worlds there. As he spoke, his right hand blossomed with spiritual light. In an instant, the array guiding flag quickly turned into an invisible light and flew toward the ruins. Super Chin was dividing up the loot in the shadow of a stone wall on the side of the ruins. The 8th grade storage bag could really hold too many things, and Super Chin had straightaway fattened up. There were a lot of things inside. In addition to the 8th grade rush cushion which Super Chin was carrying, there was also a 4th grade one, as well as some spirit talismans and magic treasures of decent quality. 5 earth escape talismans, 3 aura concealing talismans, 3 armor piercing talismans, 1 first-class spirit sword, 1 first-class spirit boot, 1 8th grade immortal sword, and a number of chi and blood pills. These things actually weren't of much use to Wang Ling. Although Jinka hadn't been brought here, even if he wasn't completely serious, the power of his casual finger chi sword, which was restricted by the talisman seal, was already close to that of a first-class holy weapon. Of course, there were also some magic treasures in the 8th grade storage bag that even Wang Ling didn't understand. General Yi had used his own imagination to create these magic treasures, just like at the Spirit Sword Exchange meet the last time. The difference was that the magic treasures at the Spirit Sword Exchange meet the last time were just balls of data and virtual simulations. But the magic treasures now were all F*** King real. For example, there was a small bumpy wooden board inside. Wang Ling couldn't figure out what it was for or what it meant at all. This is a godly weapon. Holding this wooden board, Wang Ming couldn't help sighing. I didn't expect you to find this thing. At that time, Super Chin had been in a hurry to snatch it, and hadn't had time to check its origin with the electronic illustrated handbook. What is this? Wang Ming answered without hesitation. A washboard. Wang Ling and Super Chin. In order not to arouse Super Chin's suspicions, Wang Ling bluntly chose a first-class spirit sword to carry with him, as well as an extra second-grade storage bag. In fact, Wang Ling wasn't afraid even if he didn't have a storage bag, because he could store things in his heavenly eyes field of vision. Wang Ming was even less courteous and basically emptied the bag of consumables. He had picked up a few broken things on the way here, and had used up the only Earth Escape talisman he had while looking for Wang Ling. He hadn't used the golden talisman General Yi had given him yet. Boom. The three of them packed up their belongings and were about to set off, when there was a rumble inside the ruins. It's the airdrop box, there's a firefight. Wang Ming quietly checked the radar and discovered that there were many red dots in the ruins, and there were 6 people in total. There were at least 2 to 3 groups of people. Looking over quietly, the 3 of them saw 5 teenagers next to the airdrop box, each of them holding a spirit sword. Wherever the tip of the sword pointed, the gravel and sand on the ground moved along with it, condensing into a wall. Earth and wood spirit spell? These 5 people are from Reliance High School. Hiding behind a stone wall, Super Chin secretly observed in that direction. This was actually a battle of unequal numbers. Wang Ming sighed in his heart at this scene. 5 against 1. This person was probably done for. But very quickly they realized that something wasn't right because these 5 people were actually all on the defensive. On the other side, the purple-clothed young man from God Vision High School raised the corners of his mouth slightly in the face of the combined power of 5 people's earth and wood spirit spell, and he sneered slightly. Reliance High School, it's over. With a hum, flames instantly surged out of his arm, and he smashed into the wall with a bang. Spirit light soared into the sky, and the intense spiritual pressure made Super Chen's scalp go numb. This young man from God Vision High School was really too strong. Although they were both in year 1, Super Chen felt that his strength wasn't equal to the other parties at all. Almost in an instant, the flames that rushed out of the young man's palm were like an all-conquering cannon that directly blasted the wall into powder. The 5 Reliance High School disciples were completely unable to resist the powerful disparity in strength. The stone wall was blasted open, and the 5 people threw themselves in all directions, smoke rising from their bodies at the same time. One of the eliminated disciples thumped the ground and glared angrily at the young man in front of him. Who are you? You've already been eliminated from the small world and are considered dead. Logically speaking, you shouldn't be talking. The young man slowly approached them, then spread open his palm, and the storage bags on the 5 people's bodies fell steadily into his hand with a pull of spirit energy. The young man smiled. The ancestral suction palm is still as useful as before. The eliminated disciple didn't give up and asked, "Are you a disciple of the Shao clan?" Chapter 219. Shao Yunqing? In the dark, Super Chen immediately frowned when he heard the young man in purple introduce himself. Wang Ming turned his head to look at him. Do you know this person? When I was in junior high a few years ago, I represented the school in the 5-kilometer long-distance run, and I think he beat me. Although I came in second, the gap was really too big. Super Chen sighed. It was only later that I found out that this Shao Yunqing was an outer sect disciple of the Shao family, and ranked first in the outer sect. If he can successfully get into a good university in 2 years, he'll definitely be promoted to the inner sect. Wang Ling stared at the young man in purple expressionlessly. This person was indeed very talented, and was stronger than most of the grade 1 students in number 60 high school. If Wang Ling was completely excluded from the elite class, probably only someone at Lotus Sun's level would have the ability to fight this Shao Yunqing. After killing the 5 Reliance High School students, the purple-clothed youth began to search through the storage bags of the 5 students. He fixed his gaze on one of the eliminated disciples. You've already picked up the airdrop over there, haven't you? The eliminated disciple was pretty stubborn. Hee, dead people don't talk, go search it yourself. Shao Yunqing shrugged helplessly and could only confirm it himself. When he turned his head, the 5 Reliance High School students had already disappeared. After the green smoke signifying elimination was released, the small world's elimination mechanism would take effect. Any student who emitted the green smoke would be automatically teleported back to the small world after a minute. AI, what a bunch of good-for-nothings. Shao Yunqing sneered in his heart as he searched through the airdrop box. After searching for a while, he had an astonished expression on his face. This is? Then he quickly put the contents of the airdrop box into his storage bag. There seems to be something good in that airdrop box. From a distance, Super Chen only saw the young man in purple quickly guide spirit light into the storage bag. His movements were so fast that Super Chen couldn't see what he had taken out at all. But right after that, Super Chen heard Shao Yunqing complain. Ichim? There's a gift bag of snacks in this airdrop box? Shao Yunqing took out an exquisite gift box from the box, opened the lid and searched the box for a while. He took out a pack of crispy noodle snacks and threw it on the ground disinterestedly. F***CK. Why is the airdrop crate full of trash? As soon as he said this, Wang Ling's face instantly darkened. It was an aura that Shao Yunqing had never felt before. He felt a pair of eyes staring at him from behind. In the next moment, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky above the ruins. Dark clouds shrouded the area, and silver snakes could be seen dancing in the air. Shao Yunqing turned pale with fright as he raised his head. That was the small world's godly punishment stripe. Although the divine punishment bombardment zone would appear randomly on the map in this escape mechanism, there would be a public notification 5 minutes before the divine punishment bombardment would land. Shao Yunqing couldn't understand why he suddenly fell into the god's punishment zone. In a panic, the purple-clothed youth wanted to hide in a stone hall not far away from him to avoid the divine punishment. However, it was too late. Shao Yunqing was caught off guard by this divine punishment, completely out of his expectations. When he came back to his senses, Xiao Yunqing realized that there was already a wisp of green smoke rising behind him. Under the immense pressure of the godly punishment just now, the small world had actually judged him to be dead in advance. In the dark behind the stone wall, Wang Ming stared at the gradually disappearing Xiao Yunqing and smiled bitterly as he covered his face. His heart was as clear as a mirror. This murder had been triggered entirely by a packet of crispy noodle snacks. Before Xiao Yunqing disappeared, a lot of screens were flashing in the conference room outside. The old secretary, Zhua, and the headmasters of the 6 schools were all watching the survival contest. Purple clothes, that's God Vision High School's uniform, right? That young man did pretty well. The old secretary was full of praise. Did you record that 1 versus 5 fight just now? Yes, we did. We have professionals who will record these exciting fight scenes into highlight reels, Zhua replied. Headmaster son of God Vision High School smiled slightly. Old secretary, you flatter me. That kid is our school's Xiao Yunqing. The old secretary rubbed his chin. He's a disciple of the Xiao family? Headmaster's son nodded. He's an outer sect disciple of the Xiao family, and is currently ranked number 1 in the outer sect. It's actually not easy for him to get to this point. The old secretary, why do you say that? Headmaster's son, an outer sect disciple of the Xiao clan doesn't receive as many resources as an inner sect disciple to begin with. I know this student Xiao Yunqing quite well. He doesn't have an old grandfather, a younger sister, or a female confidant in his ring, and because of his spirit root, he can't even delve into the Xiao family's proudest alchemy skills. He doesn't usually go to auctions or the underground market, and is wholeheartedly obsessed with cultivation. Don't you think it's not easy for this student? All the headmasters, it does sound like it's not easy for this kid. The old secretary looked at the screen, his eyes fixed on Xiao Yunqing. Xiao Yunqing was currently searching through the airdrop box, and then he saw him take out a snack gift box and a packet of crispy noodle snacks from it, before finally throwing them on the ground in disappointment. Almost at the same time, everyone in the conference room saw that behind Xiao Yunqing, there was actually smoke. How on earth had he died? No one had clearly seen how this had happened. Headmaster's son got up excitedly. Can you show us the killer's image? The broadcast will automatically cut to the fight. In this case, if someone chose to assassinate him from a distance, the image won't be able to follow, Zhua replied with a shake of his head. How could this be? Headmaster's son sat down in a daze and pulled at his hair like crazy. This Xiao Yunqing was his God Vision Academy's main force. He hadn't even made it to the top 9,000, and he had actually died just like that. Staring at the green smoke rising from Xiao Yunqing's back on the screen, Zhua seemed to understand something. Actually, he had neglected to mention just now that there was actually a second reason for the wisp of green smoke coming out of Xiao Yunqing's back. In order to prevent students from using too much force in this survival contest, General Yi had specially set up an automatic judgment mechanism in the small world. When the small world determined that a person was definitely going to die, the smoke would automatically drift out. Judging from the way Xiao Yunqing had thrown the crispy noodle snacks, Zhua had actually already completely understood at that time. He knew that Wang Ling was nearby. Only his Shifu had the power to influence the laws of the small world and directly determine that person's death. Chapter 220. How did this person die? Watching Xiao Yunqing disappear, Super Chin, who had been secretly observing all this time, had a surprised expression on his face. He felt that Xiao Yunqing's death was a little inexplicable. He hadn't even clearly seen how he had been hit, and the green smoke had already appeared on his back. Was this a trap? That shouldn't be possible. Using the 8th grade futon, Super Chin had sensed that they were the only ones in the vicinity of the remains. If someone had attacked with a long-range magic treasure nearby, they definitely wouldn't have been able to escape the detection range of the 8th grade futon. Furthermore, he seemed to have seen the godly punishment streak just now. The sky was suddenly shrouded in dark clouds that flickered like silver snakes. It wasn't until the green smoke appeared on Xiao Yunqing's back that the clouds dispersed. This process came very suddenly and disappeared very quickly. It lasted for about 30 seconds. Super Chin was sure that his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. Second brother, do you know what happened? Super Chin turned his head to stare at Wang Ming, who then turned his head slightly to look at Wang Ling out of the corner of his eye. This culprit looked like nothing had happened as he stared straight at the crispy noodle snacks on the ground not far away, as if his soul had been sucked out of his body. Wang Ming knew that if he didn't explain, Super Chen would become suspicious. Turning his head to look around, and after confirming that there was no one around, Wang Ming held out his fist. Do you see this fist the size of a sandbag? Just now what you saw was the last form of my Turtle Wave Heart Sutra, the no-show wave. As soon as he said this, Super Chin felt like his brain had short-circuited. After several dozen seconds of silence, Super Chin suddenly turned his head to look at Wang Ming, and his eyes lit up. It was a look full of respect and adoration, and Wang Ming felt a little uncomfortable being stared at like that. Second brother, you're too strong. Super Chin's eyes sparkled. In fact, Wang Ming still felt that it was a pity in his heart. He actually hoped that one day Wang Ling would look at him the same way Super Chin did. But unfortunately, that wasn't going to happen. After confirming that there was no one nearby, the three of them surrounded Xiao Yunqing and started to search the storage bag he had left behind. Wang Ling silently put the crispy noodle snacks on the ground into his storage bag. Previously, Super Chin had seen Xiao Yunqing pick up something from the airdrop box with a surprised look on his face. After confirming it repeatedly, Super Chin took out a one-time-use magic treasure from his storage bag. It was a sparkling glazed phoenix cup with red, green and yellow as the main colors. It's actually the Phoenix Cup. Even without the electronic illustrated handbook, Super Chin recognized this magic treasure's origin. In junior high school, almost everyone had been to Songhai City's museum, and this Phoenix Cup was an ancient magic treasure recorded in the museum's history. Rumor had it that it was the unique magic weapon of the Fire Emperor, one of the three emperors in ancient times. Currently, only a small fragment of the Phoenix Cup was stored in the museum. The whereabouts of the other fragments were long unknown. Wang Ling stared at the Phoenix Cup, lost in thought. He had read about it in ancient texts and knew that the Phoenix Cup had a great history. After all, it came from the ancient era, the same era as Old Demon Han and Old Demon Wang. At that time, the three emperors' magic weapons and Old Demon Han's sky bottle were great magic treasures that were neck and neck, and even had the title of a demigod weapon at that time. But the Phoenix Cup in the airdrop box had clearly been specially made by General Yi to popularize history among the students during the military training exercise for the 6 schools. There were actually a lot of one-time-use magic treasures that General Yi had specially designed for the survival contest, based on famous magic weapons that had appeared in history. Super Chin carefully checked it with the electronic illustrated handbook, and the results were astonishing. This Phoenix Cup's lethality is actually at level 8. Even its damage range is at level 8. This is a great killing weapon. Max level? Wang Ming also stared at the Phoenix Cup and raised his eyebrows. Actually, this design is also reasonable. After all, the Phoenix Cup's power in ancient times was extraordinary. It's a demigod weapon that can summon a fire phoenix. In ancient texts, there is a history of the Fire Emperor throwing the cup in anger to destroy a demon city. Speaking up to this point, Wang Ming couldn't help sking. No wonder Xiao Yunqing had that kind of expression just now. This thing's lethality is really too great. If it's thrown into the city center, it's the same as summoning a godly punishment circle. At that time, anyone who's exposed to the sun will be eliminated. At that moment, Super Chin's electronic illustrated handbook vibrated, and a warm reminder appeared on it, which had been sent by Immortal Toya remotely. Super Chin looked at the message. Senior Toya said that the poisonous fog will start to shrink in 10 minutes. Should we retreat first? Those people lying in ambush in the desert should have already run toward the city center. Don't rush, we still have time. Since he had personally participated in making the map for this survival contest, Wang Ming knew the map's environment like the back of his hand. There's actually a small magic array in the ancient temple in front of the remains. What kind of magic array? Asked Super Chin. Have you heard of the ancient barter array? Wang Ming explained, the history of the magic array is based on this ancient barter method. In ancient times, this type of ancient barter array, which was set up by ancient almighties, would often appear. After you threw something precious into it, you would be able to exchange it for something of equal value. To put it bluntly, it was a kind of mutual benefit. But this kind of ancient barter array is actually quite deceptive. Sometimes what you want might not be what you want. As the three of them spoke, they walked toward the dilapidated ancient temple in front of them. Sure enough, as Wang Ming had said, there was a small magic array in the center of this half-open ancient temple. It actually wasn't very big and was only the size of a millstone. Engraved on the side of the array were ancient characters that no one could understand. Super Chin looked at it in amazement. Brother Heir, is this the ancient barter array from ancient times? That's right. Wang Ming nodded. Nowadays, very few people know how to set up this kind of array. General Yi personally set it up. But why did this kind of thing appear in the survival contest? Asked Super Chin. On the one hand it's to popularize history and on the other hand, it's probably General Yi's own bad taste. You can think of this magic array as an Easter egg, answered Wang Ming. Wang Ling, Super Chin, then what do we do? Wang Ming, just throw in anything you don't think is useful from your storage bag. Super Chin directly took out the extra 4th-class prayer mat from his storage bag and threw it in. The instant it approached the light of the magic array, it turned into powder and then gradually melted into the array. Holding their breaths, they quietly watched the changes in the array. Before long, Wang Ling saw a ray of light appear. It was the array spirit of the ancient barter array. There was a flash of spirit light in the array spirit's hands, and 3 items instantly appeared between them. It looked at Super Chin with a placid expression and asked in an extremely low and magnetic voice, "May I ask, did you lose this gold cushion, silver cushion, or this jade cushion?" Chapter 221. More than 2 hours had passed in the survival contest, and nearly 1,000 people had already been eliminated. The final number of people on the plateau of the boundary pillar was also fixed at 9,118. Furthermore, it had already been a very long time since this number had changed. The competition lasted for a very long time, and no one wanted to lose their lives so soon after it started. After the initial scramble for resources when they had landed, the students from the 6 schools had started to carry out the 10,000 years of hiding tactic after occupying advantageous territory. Crouching in advantageous terrain and waiting for an outsider to make the first move before launching a counterattack. This was practically the common thinking of the students from the 6 schools in the early stages of this survival contest. The electronic illustrated handbooks were scattered all over the map, and weren't hard to find. But because of the decision of the heads of the 6 schools, the students of number 59 High School and number 60 High School each had an electronic illustrated handbook, which gave them a huge advantage in checking the map's location and obtaining information on magic treasures. All the main doors of a large supermarket had been sealed shut. A group of students from number 59 High School and number 60 High School, led by the delinquent senior He Buffing, had gathered here. Little Peanut and Dopey Guo were mixed in with this group. At the same time, everyone received a message from Immortal Toya via the electronic illustrated handbook. The poisonous fog beyond the horizon had already started to shrink for the first time. Little Peanut carefully compared the coordinates on the map and said in a low voice, "The scope of the first layer of the poisonous fog won't be too large. We're close to the center of the circle, so it's actually very safe for now." He Buffing nodded and swept his gaze over the 30 or 40 people around him. "This position is very advantageous for us. This supermarket has a lot of map resources. Even without the airdrops outside, we can pick up spirit swords, and there's even a surplus of spirit talismans and all kinds of single-use magic treasures. This is simply a circle of destiny," someone said excitedly. In order to reflect the authenticity of the map simulation this time, even the things on the shelves of the supermarket were real. All kinds of replenishing elixirs, food, water. This large supermarket had an extremely advantageous position. The only one who was a little out of sorts at the moment was Dopey Guo. From being transported butt naked into the small world, spiraling up to a height of 5,000 meters, and finally falling down again, Dopey Guo felt that he was already a little hopeless. "Is Brother Guo's stomach any better? What on earth did you eat?" He Buffing frowned. He and Tang Jingza had personally experienced Mother Wan's cooking. Although the names were very strange, the truth was that they tasted pretty good. And it was obvious that it contained a chef's deep love for the children. "No, you completely don't understand how terrifying Mother Wan's experimental cuisine is." When Little Peanut said this, he couldn't help shuddering. Last time, when Mother Wan cooked up a trial version of her cooking, a teacher at the peak late golden core stage in our school had to lie in the hospital for 20 days because it tasted so good, even his golden core shriveled up. He Buffing asked, "Is it really that scary?" Little Peanut, "Fortunately, classmate Hero Guo only took 1 bite, otherwise I'm afraid you won't even be able to find your 2 eggs in the future." Everyone, meanwhile, 2 figures stood at the top of a tall building in the center of the small world city. One of them was Immortal Toya, a handsome man with gray hair and an ancient style. Next to him stood a hunched old man, Li Su from the 7 Stars Cultivation Special Forces. He was now number 60 High's chief school guard. Old Li, standing at the top of the tall building, Immortal Toya gazed into the distance at the city which had already calmed down. "I never thought that we would meet again here." With his hands behind his back, Old Li's eyes were calm. "It's also thanks to Senior Toya that we're able to gather together this time. Because of a series of mistakes back then, the 7 of us suffered serious internal injuries, and the headmaster had no choice but to reorganize the 7 stars. Although I've been a school guard in the last few years, I've been invited by Headmaster Xingye many times to train the juniors of the new 7 stars. Xingye, speaking up to this point, Immortal Toya suddenly fell silent. How is she? Old Li narrowed his eyes and smiled. Senior Toya's heartless rejection back then was a huge blow to Headmaster Xingye. After that trauma, Headmaster Xingye has been immersed in her career, and it's been a long time since she's met the right person. I think it would be better for Senior Toya to personally go and greet her. Forget it, I don't have the courage. Immortal Toya smiled awkwardly. If I go in person, I'll definitely be killed by her. Old Li, that will depend on Senior Toya's decision. But I heard Headmaster Xingye say something at the school's annual party last time. She said that she absolutely wouldn't give up. Immortal Toya rubbed his hair, feeling a headache coming on. He felt that it was necessary for him to mass-produce medicine for injuries and bruises in the next stage. In fact, Headmaster Xingye of 7 Stars Sect had only recently instructed Old Li to pass on these words to him. Actually, everyone in the cultivation circle knew about the little gossip between Immortal Toya and Headmaster Xingye back then. Because Headmaster Xingye of 7 Stars Sect had been rejected when he took the initiative to confess, Headmaster Xingye of 7 Stars Sect had monopolized movie theater seats throughout Huaxiao Nation for 3 whole years, making all the couples miserable. After saying this much, Old Li decided to bring the topic back on track. He looked in the direction of the small world's desert. Senior Toya should have also sensed it. I sensed the aura of a godly punishment earlier, but now isn't the time for the godly punishment circle to open, so I find it a little strange. The gray-haired young man hummed in agreement, then nodded with an indifferent expression on his face. I've already checked. Senior Ling is there, so there's nothing strange about it. So Consultant Ling is there? Old Li was startled. But there doesn't seem to be any signal from him on the radar. Senior Ling hides his aura very well. If it wasn't for the fact that he was exposed by the godly punishment just now, I might not have been able to pinpoint his location. As for the problem with the radar, I think it's probably because Senior Ling's older brother blocked his signal. Whether it's us or the conference room outside, we can't see his image. Senior Ling has an older brother? Old Li felt like his worldview had been overturned a little. The gray-haired young man smiled. Do you know the strongest brain in the Cultivation Academy of Science? Old Li felt like his worldview had been overturned a little. Sure enough, Consultant Ling's strength and family background are beyond our comprehension. Old Li sighed. Come to think of it, there are still a lot of people in the small world. Furthermore, they haven't moved for a long time. If this goes on, will the competition really go on smoothly? General E already expected that the students would choose to lay low during this period of time. No one wants to be eliminated so soon. Immortal Toya replied, the scope of the poisonous fog is getting larger each time, which means that the students will have less and less space to use their abilities. When the time comes, the victor will be decided. Oh, by the way, Li Su, actually, I also have a question. Old Li, Senior Toya, please speak your mind. Immortal Toya looked at the street under his feet. I want to know, what's the deal with that green-furred Akita? Old Li, this is a dog that Consultant Ling's class raised with funds. Because there were too few participants in number 59 high school and number 60 high school this time, Consultant Ling's teacher in charge, Teacher Pan, applied to let this dog join. It's called Loopy Toad, and it's currently living in Consultant Ling's house. Living in Senior Ling's house? Living in that kind of holy land. Chapter 222. In the conference room, apart from Headmasters Chen and Jean, all the other headmasters had shocked expressions on their faces. Why was there a dog? Sitting at the very front, the old secretary looked at the flickering screen with a very calm expression. I know this dog. Furthermore, a teacher from number 60 high school reported it to me, and I personally approved it, so I didn't specifically greet you. But, old secretary, you should also know that this is just a dog. How can it compete with students from our key schools? Headmaster Hong of Prime Elevation High School was a little unhappy. Number 59 high school and number 60 high school students don't have the advantage in numbers to begin with. Letting this spirit dog in is actually also out of consideration for balance. The old secretary swept his gaze over the headmasters. Also, you probably don't know, but this number 60 high school dog is a meritorious service dog. When Shadow Stream attacked back then, this dog single-handedly killed an assassin who was trying to harm the students. When the old secretary said this, the headmasters were instantly speechless. Winning this survival contest is one thing, but we also have to make sure that education is fun. Why do you think General E came up with so many strange magic treasures in the magic treasure design process? Isn't it to teach the students about history while they're away from the competition? The old secretary stroked his beard stubble, his expression unfathomable. So I think it's also very important to promote the concept of harmonious coexistence between humans and animals. All the headmasters, the old secretary, of course General E has already considered this aspect. He also specially designed a magic treasure to be mixed into the map to effectively promote communication between students and animals. A magic treasure that could promote harmonious coexistence between humans and animals? On the side, Ajwa cupped his chin in his hand as he pondered deeply. General E had designed too many magic treasures for this survival contest. Although Ajwa had already seen a lot of them on the list, there were simply too many for his eyes to take in. What kind of magic treasure is that? At that moment a voice rang out. To everyone's surprise, the person who had raised the question this time was actually that crazy devil Patriarch Reliance, who had been cultivating in seclusion. Patriarch Reliance sighed. I've always admired General Yi's passion for creating magic treasures. If General E hadn't completed the basic blueprint for the 7-star sword back then, Immortal Jinyuan wouldn't have been able to use it as a foundation to improve it, and the legendary 7-star sword with the power to move mountains wouldn't have existed. No matter how many times I hear it, I always feel that General E is very amazing. Headmaster Chen couldn't help exclaiming in admiration. This was a truly extraordinary man. Back then, the 10 founding generals had even competed with the legendary Devil Emperor Guapai. He was now a magic treasures grandmaster who controlled Huaxiao Nation's largest magic treasure processing factory. Although he sometimes had some strange ideas when it came to the creation of magic treasures, General Yi's strength and contribution to the history of magic treasures were absolutely second to none. Principals, please be quiet. Let's listen to the secretary's introduction of the magic treasure that promotes the harmonious development of humans and animals. Without waiting for the headmasters to continue the topic of General E, Ajwa hurriedly brought it back. He wouldn't be able to finish talking about General Yi's glorious deeds even if he spent another 3 days and 3 nights. The old secretary's eyes were calm. Seeing that the surroundings had quietened down, he said, "It's an umbrella made from strong spider silk, sharp white wolf teeth, and various complicated magic tool formulas. As long as you fill the umbrella with spiritual power and open it, you can summon 1,000 spirit chickens from the sky. Those chickens are all white chickens directly imported from the chicken factory in the suburbs, and each chicken is quite plump and juicy. Promoting the harmonious development of humans and animals, your sister. Why did it have to be 1,000 plump and juicy white chickens? Was this a magic treasure that could only help people and animals develop in harmony if they didn't eat it?" Hearing this, Ajwa had the urge to roar. He already had no illusions about this magic treasure at all. It was very obvious that General E had asked someone to make it for fun. Sure enough, old cadres nowadays didn't live in harmony in their later years. Did they all like to delve into strange things? General E liked to research and develop magic treasures, while Secretary Dakong liked to race. Before the meeting, Ajwa remembered that he had to persuade Secretary Dakong for a long time before he reluctantly took off his motorcycle helmet. The Grand 10 founding generals all liked to act cute. What kind of propriety was that? Ajwa rubbed his temples in pain. It could be said that he had really worried himself to death for this group of old leaders. Everyone knew that the 10 founding generals had made great contributions to Huaxiao Nation back then. Many of them had even given up on love. Although they were all old people now, none of the 10 of them were married. Ajwa felt that he should organize this group of leaders to go on, if you are the one, at some point. When all was said and done, the big problem was that they didn't have children. If they had children, who would have the energy to study these strange things? But it was clear that the old secretary hadn't reached the root of the problem. He looked around and then asked, "Aren't you curious about the name of this umbrella that can instantly summon 1,000 white chickens?" Patriarch Reliance, "So, what's it called?" "1,000 Chickens Umbrella," the old secretary replied. Ajwa already didn't want to speak. On the street, Loopy Toad couldn't help sneezing. The topic of harmonious development between humans and animals was actually quite unfriendly to Loopy Toad. After all, it knew that it had been a demon king in its past life. Although it had already turned over a new leaf under Little Master Ling's guidance. Even the demon chi source it needed to cultivate the Demon King Heart Sutra had been replaced with spirit chi source thanks to Little Master Ling's harmonization. So in theory, Loopy Toad had already completely broken away from its previous identity as a demon king. The spirit energy source in Loopy Toad's body was very pure. It was even cleaner than that of some Foundation establishment students. It was precisely because of this that it had obtained Secretary Dakong's permission to participate in this survival contest. If there had been even the slightest trace of demon chi in its body, Loopy Toad believed that Secretary Dakong would have smacked it to death with one palm before it could even enter, and its soul would have been directly destroyed. Of course, Wang Ling had no idea at all about coming to the survival contest this time. That was because after he had reported to school in the morning, Number 60 High had specially sent someone to the Wang family's small villa to pick it up. Sitting in Number 60 High's private car at that time, Loopy Toad had thought that this could be considered some kind of mysterious fate with Little Master Ling. In any case, Loopy Toad felt that the most important thing now was to find Little Master Ling. It magnified its sense of smell, and its gaze finally locked onto the direction of the small world's desert. Chapter 223. Even if it was just an ordinary dog, it had a very keen sense of smell. Science showed that a dog's sense of smell was more than 1,000 times more sensitive than a human's. Since accepting reality and becoming a dog, Loopy Toad's sense of smell had been improving. Logically speaking, a cultivator's 5 senses were 100 times stronger than an ordinary person's, and as a cultivation dog, Loopy Toad's sense of smell was more than 1,000 times stronger than a cultivator's. Hence, it could often smell some strange things. For example, when it was in the Wang family's small villa, Loopy Toad could smell Mother Wang's perfume in the bedroom on the 3rd floor, Father Wang's smelly socks in the study, and the crispy noodle snacks Wang Ling was eating in his room. It's definitely that place. On the roof, Loopy Toad stared in the direction of the ruins in the desert. What was strange was that apart from Wang Ling's scent, it also smelled something wretched, but Loopy Toad was sure that this wasn't Wang Ling's scent. Their young master was a person who loved to be clean. Loopy Toad wagged its tail on the roof, and with a light leap, it covered dozens of meters, sprinting wildly in the direction of the ruins at several times the speed of a 100-meter sprint. In the surrounding buildings, the students sitting on futons and relying on their amplified spiritual senses to sense their surroundings opened their eyes wide at that moment, as if they had been startled awake. "What's wrong?" asked a teammate on the side. "I think I saw a green dog. Was it accidentally teleported in?" "I don't think so." The student shook his head, a horrified expression on his face. When he had checked with his spiritual senses just now, he had felt that the dog had jumped too high, and didn't look like a proper dog at all. Furthermore, it had run at an astonishing speed, like a bolt of lightning, and had actually left the range of his spiritual senses in the blink of an eye. Because of Wang Ming's previous wrong decision, the array spirit of the ancient barter array had furiously taken away everything he had on him. Wang Ming half knelt on the ground and apologized sincerely to the array spirit of the ancient barter array. "Ah, beautiful Miss Array Spirit. I was wrong. I shouldn't have made the wrong choice in a moment of heat for my own selfish desires." "Array Spirit." "Wang Ming, also Miss Array Spirit, don't you think that my choices correspond to the 4 most precious qualities of humans?" "Array Spirit, ? Wang Ming, if you don't fast forward, it means you're steady. Watching porn and not indulging in it represented integrity. If he didn't take it out after reading it, it meant that he was persistent. To be able to watch the video after masturbating, it means that you're persistent." As soon as Wang Ming said this, Wang Ling and Super Chen felt like they had been struck by lightning. The Zhen Ling took a deep breath, feeling that the man in front of him was already hopeless. "So, this is the reason why you chose the jade cushion?" The array spirit didn't dwell too much on Wang Ming, and confiscated everything he had obtained from the small world. General Yi's spirit talisman and the staff's radar system, which were all public property, were ultimately kept. Wang Ming breathed a huge sigh of relief at this result. Fortunately, the golden talisman was still there. With the golden talisman he could continue to act tough. For the first time, Wang Ling felt that his elder brother wasn't just stupid. He also had no integrity. When they came out of the ancient temple, Wang Ming looked in the direction of the boundary pillar. It had already been nearly 20 minutes since they had entered the ancient temple, and the final number of people in the sky still hadn't changed much. There were still more than 9,100 people. "Now, are we still going to the city center?" Super Chin looked in the direction of the city center with a headache. It hadn't been easy for them to get rich just now, but who would have thought that because of Wang Ming, they would be sent back to square one? Most of the consumables, elixirs, spirit talismans and so on that they had collected earlier had been confiscated by the array spirit. The only good news was that the 8th grade prayer cushion and the Phoenix Cup were still there. This left Super Chin speechless. Who would have thought that at this critical moment, they would actually send the array spirit an express delivery? With these resources, Super Chin had initially planned to go to the center of the city and fight it out, but the current situation didn't look optimistic. The current situation proved that a lot of people were lying in wait in the city center and were unwilling to show their faces. If they went there now, they would only be treated as live targets. So taking the above situation into account, it could be said that the Phoenix Cup was their greatest hope now. But what on earth should they do? Super Chin clutched his head, feeling a little frantic. Don't panic, aren't classmate Wang Ling and I here? I heard that classmate Wang Ling is our class mascot, so I'm sure it won't be a problem. Wang Ming grinned. Wang Ling. You're the mascot. Given that the current situation wasn't too good, the three of them decided to wait in the remains for a while longer, and then head to the city center when the next wave of poisonous fog began to shrink. But it wasn't long before Wang Ling suddenly realized that the scenery around him had unexpectedly started to gradually turn misty. Is this fog? Super Chin rubbed his eyes. As soon as he said this, he instantly felt like he was going to collapse, and his head felt like lead had been poured into it. In a flash, this muscular sportsman, weighing 170 jin, plunged into Wang Ming's arms next to him. There's something wrong with this white fog. Wang Ming took out the golden talisman which General Yi had given him, and noticed that it was flashing. It was General Yi's golden talisman that was protecting him, otherwise he would have collapsed long ago. The appearance of this white fog was very sudden and very strange. What frightened Wang Ming the most was that it hadn't been long since it had appeared, but Super Chin, this rough man, had actually directly fainted. The only thing he could be sure of was that this was definitely an abnormal phenomenon. After the poisonous fog had shrunk earlier, the people who had been lingering in the desert had long since gone to the city center to look for a place to stay. The three of them were the only group left in the desert. Without the disturbance of external factors, the appearance of this white mist was extremely abnormal. Ling, what the hell is going on? Wang Ming looked a little panicked, because he realized that all the electronic products he had on him had unexpectedly lost their effectiveness in this white fog. Wang Ling got up and looked around calmly. At that moment, Wang Ming could clearly see that Wang Ling's body was enveloped in a faint golden light. Oh no, even the protective golden light has appeared. As expected, this fog is poisonous. Wang Ming was a little scared. Ling, if I breathe in this fog, will I go from being the strongest brain to being the strongest retard? Wang Ling. Without answering Wang Ming, Wang Ling closed his eyes and carefully felt out the composition of the white fog. As Wang Ming had said, this white fog wasn't simple at all. Furthermore, it had a kind of weakening power. Forget a foundation establishment cultivator, even a golden core cultivator would be directly knocked out by it. The most important thing was that this white fog was very toxic and concentrated, and Wang Ling couldn't directly disperse it. The air in the small world circulated. If he waved his hand to disperse this fog, it would mix with the air in this small world, and all the students here would suffer. There was only one last option left. Wang Ling stared at the strange white fog in his field of vision, which he had no idea where it had come from, and took a deep breath. Instantly, a vast expanse of white fog flowed through Wang Ling's nose and into his stomach like a torrent. Chapter 224. Because he had inhaled this white fog, his stomach instantly swelled up like a balloon, but it was very quickly purified by his internal organs. A sage body wasn't just indestructible on the outside, its ability to purify the internal organs was also top-notch, and it could instantly dispel all kinds of strange poisons in the world. Looking at this scene, Wang Ming finally breathed a sigh of relief. Super Chin? Super Chin? He nudged Super Chin, but realized that there was no sign of this guy waking up. He was instantly a little unhappy. Wang Ming thought that apart from Wang Ling, the only person in the world who could lie in his arms was his future wife. Under normal circumstances, Wang Ming would never allow a third person to take advantage of him. Seeing the deep contemplation in Wang Ming's eyes, even if Wang Ling didn't read minds, he knew that this idiot brother of his was most likely letting his imagination run wild again. A ball of white light lit up at his fingertips as Wang Ling touched Super Chen's forehead and used the great purification spell to disperse the white poisonous fog that Super Chen had inhaled. Although Super Chen was still in a coma, he was generally fine. What was left was to find the source of this white poisonous fog. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes and opened his heavenly eye to the maximum, and like a searchlight, he began to search the ruins inch by inch. The origin of this white fog was very unusual, and it gave him a familiar feeling. He remembered that when he had been tricked into becoming a spell consultant for the 7-Star Special Forces 3 years ago, when he had entered the gate between worlds to save Old Lee and his gang, there had been elements of this white poisonous fog that seemed familiar to him. Thinking this, a thought flashed through Wang Lingzhong's mind. He remembered that this white mist was mixed with the demonic aura from the gate between worlds. But why was there demon chi here? While he was pondering this, his gaze fell on a spot in the center of the ruins behind a stone pillar. He realized that there was actually an array guiding flag there. Underground in the small world, the old devil had opened up a new secret room. The entire room was enveloped in the purple gold gourds fog, which formed a natural barrier that completely cut off any outside interference. In front of the old devil was a crystal coffin with a skeleton inside. The skeleton was very well preserved and looked like a carved work of art. Every bone was sparkling and translucent, and shone with a faint light. Inside the stone ghost mask, Jiang Luiyue was shocked. This was the first time she had seen the skeleton of an ancient almighty. A skeleton that could resurrect this old devil who had once shaken Huaxiao Nation. Jiang Luiyue already couldn't imagine the origin of the almighty behind this skeleton. At the very least, he would be a great senior after the form synthesis stage. Jiang Luiyue guessed that it was between the tribulation stage and the great vehicle stage. Are you shocked? Stroking the crystal coffin, the old devil also sighed deeply. When my venerable self found this skeleton 2,000 years ago, wasn't I amazed? This skeleton is too perfect. It's as if it was tailor-made for me. 2,000 years? Jiang Luiyue was once again amazed by this old devil's foresight. He had actually already found a way out for her at that time? With his hands clasped behind his back, the old devil did some calculations on his fingers. It's been a while since the array guiding flags were set up. The demon chi of the gate between worlds should have already seeped into this small world, and the gate of the gate between worlds is about to descend. Now is the best time to set up the reincarnation array. Speaking up to this point, the old devil opened the crystal coffin. Without the seal of the crystal coffin, the pressure exerted by the skeleton of the ancient almighty was simply suffocating. The moment the coffin opened, a powerful sense of oppression abruptly descended. The ground under the old devil's feet shook, and both his feet sank under the pressure. Fortunately, the old devil had been prepared for this. Together with the Taoist robe he was wearing and the protective light shield he was operating, he could just about resist this pressure. Everything is within my consideration. The old devil smiled slightly. With a wave of his hand, 8 candles instantly appeared in this crowded underground space. Using magic energy to connect with the netherworld fire to light the candles was the first and most crucial step in setting up the reincarnation array. During the reincarnation process, the extinguishing of any one candle would result in the failure of the reincarnation. This was also why the old devil had chosen to open up a space underground. Now, as long as my venerable self fills up this skeleton and absorbs the vitality, it will be done. Looking at the 8 lit candles, the old devil's movements became more careful. In the stone ghost mask, Jiang Luiyue saw the old devil take out 2 large sacks from his storage space. Lord Devil Emperor, what's this? This is filthy earth. The old devil replied in a low voice. Next, my venerable self just needs to apply filthy earth to the skeleton, cast a spell, and activate the reincarnation array. So it was filthy earth? Jiang Luiyue was stupefied once again, her heart utterly shaken. Could this be the legendary filthy earth reincarnation spell? Filthy earth reincarnation spell? When you say rebirth, you mean rebirth of life, right? The old devil sneered. This kind of spell actually doesn't exist at all. How can it be possible to be reborn by simply molding a body with filthy earth? Otherwise, do you think those ancient almighties were all fools? Jiang Luiyue, the conditions for reconstructing a body for reincarnation are very harsh. Apart from finding a skeleton that matches your own type, you also need to find enough filthy earth. Based on this foundation, you can consider the reincarnation array. Otherwise, there's no point in talking about it. The old devil sighed. Furthermore, the sale of filthy earth is currently a strictly restricted and scarce resource, and it's worth as little as dirt. My venerable self found these 2 bags of filthy earth in the tomb of this almighty when I found this ancient skeleton. My venerable self reckons that this almighty originally wanted to use it for himself. Unfortunately, this person's days were numbered, and he didn't have the fortune to enjoy it. Jiang Luiyue was blank. So, Lord Devil Emperor is picking up leftovers? You can't say that. The old devil shook his head. Picking up leftovers is also a manifestation of luck. Back then, that old man Yi Jianchuan was just a little bit away from completely destroying my venerable self. Unfortunately, he couldn't have imagined that my venerable self would make a mistake and seal myself in the stone ghost mask, causing my aura to disappear from this world. Although my physical body disappeared because of this, it also allowed my soul to recover during this period of time when I was sealed. So, all of this proves that my venerable self isn't fated to die. Jiang Liwei, then dare I ask, Senior, what spell are you using now? The old devil, have you heard of the filthy earth reincarnation spell? The body I'm talking about is the body of the body. Jiang Liwei, filthy earth reincarnation spell? That's right. The old devil nodded. Just as he said this, the old devil used spirit energy to flip the ancient almighty skeleton in front of him. So, the key to using this spell is to apply filthy earth on both sides of the skeleton. When you use it, you must remember to flip it over. Chapter 225. An array guiding flag? Why was there such a thing here? Wang Ming stared blankly at the fluttering flag on the ground. If anyone else had been here, they definitely wouldn't have been able to figure it out. That was because array guiding flags had disappeared from the market 1,000 years ago, and couldn't even be bought on the black market. The production of these magic treasures had already been strictly prohibited, and the worst thing was that they would be used by criminals. Although Wang Ming wasn't a cultivator, he had done a lot of research on cultivation. Relying on this most powerful brain's understanding of cultivation theory alone, it was likely that he had already surpassed a lot of genuine cultivators. Wang Ming stared at the flag, his pupils turning like a scanner as rows of numbers rolled around in his eyes. After a moment, he analyzed it and was certain that this flag hadn't been produced in the modern era. It had been around for a very long time, at least 1,000 years. Carrying Super Chin on his back, Wang Ming pondered deeply. What on earth was going on? Actually, the situation was already very clear. This demon chi was definitely released by the gate between worlds. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes and spirit light blossomed in his pupils. Because Wang Ming didn't have the heavenly eye, he couldn't see the array that had been set up around the array guiding flag, but Wang Ling could see it clearly. This was a summoning array that had already been set up, and had already been in operation for some time. What was worse was that it had already entered the completion stage. Wang Ling estimated that the gate between worlds would descend from here in 2 minutes. Ling, are you saying that the gate between worlds is going to descend here? Hearing Wang Ling's explanation, Wang Ming's face turned a little unsightly. His electronic equipment was broken, and he couldn't even call for backup at a time like this. Furthermore, he had already blocked Wang Ling and Super Chen's radar signals. The surveillance cameras in the conference room outside wouldn't be able to capture what was happening here. Everything was terrible. What should he do? Cold sweat trickled down Wang Ming's cheeks as he looked at the protective golden light around him and Super Chin, a little absent-minded. In this tense atmosphere, Wang Ling just patted Wang Ming on the shoulder indifferently. He really didn't know why his dumbass brother was panicking when he was around. Facts had proven that no matter how close a family member was, after a long period of not living together, there would be a certain deviation in their understanding of each other. He remembered that he had lived with Wang Ming as a child, and that was probably when Wang Ming had understood him the most. Wang Ming was keen on meaningless challenges such as rock-paper-scissors, high jumps, sprints, or comparing little Wang Ming and little Wang Ling's lengths. Sometimes he would even compete with Wang Ling in peeing speed. Unfortunately, he failed all these challenges. Later, Wang Ming was taken away by the people from the Cultivation Academy of Science to receive state protection, and the two brothers met less and less often. At most, they would only see each other once during festive reunions. Sometimes, Wang Ming didn't even go home for the new year, just in time for a new breakthrough in research at the Academy of Science. Wang Ling remembered that the last time he had met Wang Ming was the day this idiot brother of his had given him the Dao Talisman seal. And this meeting was entirely because Wang Ming had brought his research team along on official business. But even if you beat him to death, he would never have thought, his elder brother. He had actually misunderstood his own strength. Speaking of Wang Ming's understanding of Wang Ling's strength, Wang Ling's innate and unstoppable growth in realms had resulted in him reaching the soul formation stage at the age of 7, and he hadn't even had enough time to consolidate his cultivation before he was already on his way to the next realm. Since then, wearing the Dao Talisman seal had become his daily routine. It was stuck to his arm like a band-aid and he couldn't take it off even when he showered. So, of course Wang Ming knew that Wang Ling was very strong. But he had always thought that there was a limit to this strength. He was still fantasizing about when he could defeat Wang Ling. Just as Wang Ling had expected, the ground under their feet started to shake 2 minutes later. The array with the array guiding flags burst out with light, and the mysterious ancient characters on the array disc spun continuously around it, giving off an oppressive aura. Bzzz. Then a chaotic light surged out of the array. Wang Ling narrowed his eyes and turned up the golden light shield that he had given to Wang Ming and Super Chen to the maximum. Their bodies wouldn't be able to withstand this spatial disorder at all. At that moment, if any other student had been here, they would have been directly torn to shreds by this chaotic light. This light carried with it a piercingly cold pressure, and it felt as if a century had passed. Accompanied by this light, a glowing door gradually appeared in the center of the array guiding flags. The door, which was covered in interwoven archaic characters, was more than 30 meters tall. Strange symbols were carved on the door frame, and they overlapped each other, making it impossible to tell what they were. The light lingering on the door was also unusually bright, and Wang Ming felt like he couldn't keep his eyes open, and it took him a long time to gradually adjust to it. Even with the golden light shield that Wang Ling had given him, he found it a little difficult to even breathe under the continuous illumination of this evil light. This is the gate between worlds? This was Wang Ming's first time facing the gate between worlds head-on, and at such a close distance at that, and he was utterly terrified. He dared say that if it wasn't for Wang Ling's golden light shield, he wouldn't have been able to hold out for even a second. But in the face of this door, Wang Ming saw that Wang Ling's expression didn't change in the slightest. Wang Ling's gaze was fixed on this massive door, which was 30 meters tall, as if he was planning something. Lingzi, don't try to be brave. Wang Ming roared. You still have the Dao Talisman seal on your hand, so you can't use your full strength. If you don't think it's possible, we can retreat first and get out of the range of this light. Find a student to contact the outside world and ask Secretary Da Kong for help. The most important thing was that Wang Ling couldn't take off the Dao Talisman so easily, because if he did, he wouldn't be able to restrain his aura, and the whole small world would suffer. That would be a catastrophe even more terrifying than the gate between worlds. Right now he was in a complete dilemma. As soon as he said that, the ground shook violently again. With a creaking sound, the great door of the gate between worlds slowly opened at that moment. In a split second, a storm of the demon world howled out, and Wang Ming's face was deformed by the wind. Carrying Super Chen on his back, Wang Ming stubbornly held on by the golden light shield. He looked at Wang Ling and roared anxiously, Lingzi! You can't. Hurry and come back. Wang Ming had heard Secretary Da Kong mention that 6 years ago, in order to seal the gate between worlds, they had combined the strength of the 10 founding generals, and had only barely managed to close it with the strength of 1 billion jin. Now that Wang Ling was still wearing the Dao Talisman seal, Wang Ming felt that it was impossible no matter what. However, Wang Ling had no intention of stopping. Wang Ming watched as Wang Ling approached the gate between worlds step by step. He even saw a demon claw as thick as a horned dragon stretch out from the crack in the door that was about to open. Lingzi, hurry and leave. Given your current strength, you can't close it. Wang Ming roared at the top of his lungs. Ignoring Wang Ming's roar, Wang Ling stretched out his hand toward the huge door and then gave it a fierce push. Wang Ming heard a loud thump. The light of chaos in front of him disappeared. Right after that, the thick demon claw was directly snapped in half by the door, and with a crash, it fell at Wang Ling's feet. Wang Ming. Chapter 226. After Wang Ling closed the gate between worlds, the scene became quiet once more. According to the records of the previous gate between worlds, when the gate between worlds was fully opened, a storm of demonic aura would surge out, and the entire city would be corroded by the demonic aura, causing all kinds of abnormal natural disasters. But he couldn't see this kind of big scene at all now. Apart from the chaotic light fluctuations caused by the gate's descent, Wang Ming couldn't see any other abnormal phenomena. Wang Ling had closed the door too quickly. The gate between worlds had just opened a crack when it was slammed shut with a dong sound. Wang Ming could even see the cracks on the door frame like a spider web, which was enough to prove how much force Wang Ling had used to close the door. Wang Ming's mouth was completely agape as he stared dumbstruck at this scene. With one hand he had closed the door. This was enough to prove that the explosive force of Wang Ling's single arm was at least 1 billion jin. This kind of strength once again refreshed Wang Ming's understanding of the upper limit of Wang Ling's strength. He had thought that Wang Ling wouldn't be able to exert this kind of strength at all with the Dao Talisman seal on him. God knew that this Dao Talisman seal really only helped Wang Ling better control his strength and conceal his aura. At this thought, Wang Ming couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. He really couldn't imagine how terrifying Wang Ling would be if he removed this Dao Talisman seal. So, the gate between worlds closed just like that? With Super Chin on his back, Wang Ming blinked at the huge door in front of him in a daze. The speed at which it closed was too fast. Wang Ming even felt that even if the radar hadn't been blocked on this side, the broadcast from the conference room outside might not have been able to cut in at all. Furthermore, Wang Ming could already imagine the Demon King's expression inside the gate between worlds, as if it had just eaten shit. Such a thick arm was as long as 2 or 3 adults, and blue veins bulged on it as if they were coiled around a horned dragon. Judging from the size of the arm alone, Wang Ming felt that the Demon King behind the door was at least 20 meters tall. 6 years ago, after the demon army had experienced a collective withdrawal, it was very obvious that this Demon King had mustered up its courage to stretch out its hand. Its heart had been filled with the joy of reviving the demon race in the future, the excitement of realizing the great dream of restoring the glory of the demon race, and the anticipation of the demon race descending upon all human cultivators. However, just as he stretched out his hand, it was King broken. A few seconds before the gate between worlds descended, Loopy Toad had actually already arrived nearby. Then it saw that familiar chaotic light surging out from the gate between worlds, but Loopy Toad wasn't the least bit afraid because it had also come out of that door 6 years ago. However, the ending was somewhat tragic. Not long after it came out, 10-year-old Wang Ling punched it in the stomach, scaring the demon army behind it into directly retreating. When it saw the gate between worlds descend again this time, Loopy Toad's first feeling was that it was familiar, and at the same time, a little strange. This was a small world that General E had specially created for the students in this survival contest. Logically speaking, something as dangerous as the gate between worlds would never appear here. So when Loopy Toad saw the gate between worlds, it instantly guessed that someone had summoned it here. However, who would have the guts and the ability to activate the gate between worlds and communicate with the demons inside? Loopy Toad couldn't think of a reasonable answer at all. It was at that moment that Loopy Toad saw the gate between worlds open in the distance, and a thick purple demon claw stretched out from inside. Loopy Toad's eyes widened. This is the Troll Clan? It recognized the origin of this demon claw at almost one glance. Every demon had a demon talisman on them, which corresponded to their clan and identity. Loopy Toad was 100% sure that this was a troll demon claw. Furthermore, judging from the size of the arm alone, Loopy Toad was certain that this was a chief demon king of the Troll Clan. The sky-swallowing Toad clan was ranked 28th on the top 100 list of the demon race, and ranked above average. But the Troll Clan was the genuine top dog of the demon race and was ranked in the top 10. An elder of the Troll Clan was already as strong as Loopy Toad at its peak, let alone a chief demon king? What should it do? Should it attack? 1 inch, another inch. Loopy Toad saw the purple demon claw stretch out from the crack in the door bit by bit, and in the end, a whole arm directly stretched out and pressed against the door. It's coming out. The moment it saw that arm, Loopy Toad's nerves straightaway tightened. Back then Wang Ling had only used one punch to destroy it. But when all was said and done, this was a demon ranked in the top 10, and was also the chief of the Troll Clan. Given that Wang Ling had a talisman seal on him, Loopy Toad felt that it was really hard to say what the outcome would be. Loopy Toad felt that it could actually negotiate with the Troll Clan, but it also felt that this chief demon wouldn't listen to it at all. At that moment, Loopy Toad was very anxious. But it was at that moment that it saw Wang Ling walk toward the gate between worlds step by step. With a push of his hand, the door slammed shut with a bam. Loopy Toad, and then there was no, and then, Loopy Toad saw that giant troll arm snap just like that, and it fell from the air before crashing to the ground with a crash. This scene was a little familiar. Loopy Toad never expected that after 6 years, the demon race's invasion would actually fail once again. Furthermore, the situation this time was even more tragic. At the very least, a few demons had managed to sneak in during the previous invasion. This time, they didn't even get to take a step inside before Wang Ling mercilessly blocked them outside. 100 years later, at the top of a cliff inside the gate between worlds. This was the Troll Clan's ancestral land. A one-armed old troll was sitting on the cliff with his grandson in his arms, enjoying the breeze. His temples were gray, and his long white hair hung down in a pile at his side. The old troll was already old. He had retired from his high position behind the scenes to begin his life of retirement, and now had a house full of children and grandchildren. The grandson in his arms was already 200 years old, but he was only a little over 4 meters tall. For the long-lived Troll Clan he was still just a tiny dot. As the breeze blew over the cliff, the one-armed old troll's grandson woke up from his deep sleep. He rubbed his eyes and stared at his grandfather. Grandpa, how on earth did you lose your arm? The one-armed old troll, why do you ask this question every day? His grandson asked the same question every day as soon as he woke up. He was about to go crazy. The little troll, because I'm really curious. But Grandpa always refuses to tell me. The old troll looked at his grandson and said faintly, You really want to know? The little troll nodded his head like a chicken pecking at rice. I'm guessing that when Grandpa was fighting a bloody battle on the front lines with the demon race, he was cut off by the enemy, right? I want to hear Grandpa's story. The old troll shook his head. No, the little troll, could it have been cut off by a love rival while protecting Grandma? The old troll was silent for a while and finally decided to tell the truth. You might not believe it, but Grandpa's arm was cut off by a door. Chapter 227. Because of his physique, Wang Ming had been unable to cultivate since he was a child. Even though he had the strongest brain, he was still rather envious of Wang Ling's innate realm. What on earth did cultivation feel like? Wang Ming actually really wanted to experience it. However, this was just a thought because if one wanted to become an outstanding modern cultivator, the pressure was actually quite great. Modern cultivation emphasized quality education, and the long Outyin cultivation philosophy of killing gods and Buddhas in their way had long since become a thing of the past. To be a cultivator now, not only did one have to have outstanding ability, one also had to be able to shoulder a certain degree of social responsibility. In contrast, Wang Ming felt that the pressure on Wang Ling was much greater than on him. Wang Ling's daily life was like holding his breath in water, and he had to do everything in his power to reduce his presence. Apart from that, he also had to think about how to save the world. The problem was that these troubles had come knocking on Wang Ling's door of their own accord, and he had never thought about getting involved at all. The appearance of the gate between worlds could probably be considered a major event that would shock the world. This time, Wang Ling had casually closed the gate, and in passing had also snapped off a demon king's arm, invisibly saving the world once again. Who knew what other troubles there would be in the future? Wang Ming looked at Wang Ling's unusually quiet face, and his heart instantly ached for his little brother. After all, he was only 16 years old. About 3 minutes after Wang Ling had closed the gate between worlds dissipated into an illusory image, and this more than 100 feet tall gate gradually disappeared as if it had dissolved into the air. It's gone just like that? Wang Ming heaved a long sigh of relief, looking a little tired. When he had faced the gate between worlds just now, the shock and impact had been so strong that it had been more thrilling than riding a roller coaster. At that moment, a voice came from the side. The artifact spirit of the gate between worlds disappeared 1,000 years ago, otherwise it wouldn't have disappeared so quickly. Now, every time the gate between worlds is opened, it consumes a lot of demon energy as a power source. Once the gate is closed and there's no new power source, the gate between worlds will automatically disappear. Wang Ming turned his head to look, and realized that at some point, a green-furred Akita had appeared behind him. Wang Ming suddenly remembered that Father Wang seemed to have mentioned to him before that there was a dog in Wang Ling's class that the Wang family wanted to foster. It was just that Wang Ming hadn't expected this dog's identity to be anything but simple. Not only did it know the gate between worlds like the back of its hand, it could actually speak the human language. How do you know so much about the gate between worlds? Wang Ming blinked as he stared at Loopy Toad. Although it was all in the past. But every time it mentioned this, Loopy Toad's eyes couldn't help welling up with sparkling tears. Loopy Toad, because I came out of it back then. This king was a very proud toad back then. Wang Ming, Loopy Toad, until, after I landed in the human world, little Master Ling punched me in the stomach. Wang Ling and Wang Ming rubbed his chin, still finding it a little strange. You say you're a toad, so how on earth did you become a dog? It's a long story. Loopy Toad sighed and at the same time felt a little frantic in its heart. How on earth did I end up like this? Can you two brothers at least have some king idea? Looking at Loopy Toad, Wang Ming suddenly thought of a saying. It used to be a king. Later it said, forget it. Many screens flickered in the conference room. The old secretary stared at them with an unprecedentedly deep look in his eyes. Headmaster Chen was a little baffled. Secretary.com, what's wrong? The old secretary frowned. I don't know if it's an illusion, but I feel a different kind of fluctuation in the small world. Although the source of this small world is that old man Yi Jianchuan's, I was also responsible for the basic construction of some nomological laws when this small world was established back then. As it turned out, the old secretary's feeling wasn't wrong. The appearance of the gate between worlds in the small world had caused a ruckus, but Wang Ming had completely blocked out the broadcast in that area. In fact, the monitoring equipment in Audiobook's hand had already detected this fluctuation. It was like a hillside, like a roller coaster that had reached a critical level that couldn't be detected. After about 3 minutes, it suddenly dropped and returned to normal. Audiobook knew that something must have happened to his Shifu in the small world. But in the end, he couldn't hide it from the old secretary. Pretending to look at the data, Audiobook pretended to be calm as he reported, There was indeed a 3-minute anomaly in the monitoring data just now, but it very quickly returned to normal. This is probably a system error. System error? The old secretary frowned. Because that power had been too real and very dangerous. However, it didn't seem like it could be emitted by an evil spirit. The old secretary could feel the righteous aura contained in that abruptly erupting power. Really, it was like divine punishment, very pure. Was it really just an illusion? Last time, at the Spirit Sword Exchange meet between number 59 High School and number 60 High School, I felt the same aura. The old secretary stroked his beard stubble with a puzzled look in his eyes. It was just that the aura back then had been very brief and hadn't been as strong as this time. It had only appeared for a while. Audiobook sweated a little. He already knew what the aura the old secretary was talking about was. After a spirit sword stayed with its master for a long time, the aura it gave off would be similar to that of its master. Thus, the aura the old secretary had felt last time had actually been emitted by Jinka. Audiobook looked around and noticed that Patriarch Reliance, who was sitting next to Headmaster Chin, also seemed to have something to say. This patriarch was probably the strongest of the 6 headmasters. Furthermore, he was an old senior addicted to seclusion, and his perception was almost unusually sensitive. What should he do? Was he going to be exposed? There was a little panic in Audiobook's eyes. Old secretary headmasters, according to the monitoring data, there's good news. In a moment of desperation, Audiobook decided to change the subject. The old secretary raised his eyebrows. What news? Audiobook answered truthfully, according to the monitoring data, the fluctuations from the gate between worlds that we detected earlier have now completely disappeared. Disappeared? The old secretary's eyes widened. Then he got up with a face full of joy and patted Audiobook on the shoulder. Little Josie, last time the younger sister of the Master of Shadow Stream was suddenly caught again, and this time the fluctuations from the gate between worlds mysteriously disappeared. I wasn't wrong, you're a mascot. Audiobook. Chapter 228. Ever since Wuxia Nation had detected fluctuations from the gate between worlds 2 days ago, the entire country had entered a strict state of alert. Considering that it was possible that the gate between worlds had been forcibly summoned by criminals, it was possible that people would be stopped by the police to check their water meter and verify their identity before they could let them through. However, no one could have imagined that the gate between worlds incident would already be over before it had even started. Wang Ling stared at the giant Demon King's arm on the ground, and finally opened his heavenly eye to take the arm into its field of vision. The Demon King's arm was too obvious here, and outsiders would definitely be suspicious if they saw it. After doing all this, Wang Ling heaved a slight sigh of relief. When he turned his head to look, he saw that Loopy Toad had a lifeless expression on its face. Wang Ling. What was it doing? Loopy Toad, I'm thinking about the first half of my miserable life. Wang Ling and Wang Ming. Loopy Toad walked slowly to Wang Ling's feet and used its dog paw to touch the deep pit left behind by the troll's giant arm, which still seemed to be warm from the arm's impact. Hungry, it's so bitter. I shouldn't have been the first to rush into the human world in the first place. If I hadn't rushed in, I wouldn't have been killed with one punch, and if I hadn't been killed with one punch, I wouldn't have ended up in such a sad place. Loopy Toad's eyes widened. Wang Ling. This guy was so agitated that it could even speak. Wang Ming bent down and rubbed Loopy Toad's head gently. I shouldn't have let it see this. Actually, Wang Ming could quite understand this feeling. Wang Ming remembered that in his novels, protagonists who were reborn in another world would start to adapt to their new lives after just a few chapters, and wholeheartedly resolve to live a beautiful and happy life in another world. Loopy Toad was obviously a relatively emotional toad. This Demon King's arm reminded it of its children and grandchildren on the other side of the gate between worlds. But with its current dog body, Loopy Toad felt that even if it returned to the demon world and jumped into the Yellow River, it still wouldn't be able to explain itself. Furthermore, in order to highlight the status of the sky-swallowing toad clan's Toad King, Each generation of Toad Kings would issue a Toad King's exclusive currency. Loopy Toad felt that even if it explained itself, returned to the Toad clan, and became Toad King again, there was no need to print a dog head on the currency, right? In the desert, the blue circle was shrinking for the second time. Wang Ming raised his eyes to look around. When the first blue circle had shrunk earlier, the toxic fog had still been very far away. Now, it was within his line of sight and could almost be described as close at hand. When the next wave of poisonous fog advanced, it would cover the entire ruins and border city. We have to go, or else the third circle will poison us to death. Wang Ming frowned as he spoke, then shook the person on his back. Super Chin still didn't look like he was going to wake up. Should I wake him up? Wang Ling raised his eyes to look at Wang Ming as he spoke telepathically. Wang Ming nodded. Wake him up, otherwise it'll be inconvenient for him to move around. Alright, in that case he would have to wake him up. In the next moment he raised his palm. Seeing this scene, Wang Ming was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Wait. After the incident with the gate between worlds, Wang Ming already had a new understanding of his younger brother's strength. With the Dao Talisman seal still in place, Super Chin could actually exert the tremendous strength of 1 billion Jin with one arm. If he hadn't been careful with this slap, he might have directly sent Super Chin's head flying. So before the slap could fall, Wang Ming stopped it. Let me do it. If you slap him, Super Chin might not live to see tomorrow's sun. Wang Ling, at the top of a tall building in the center of the small world, Immortal Toya looked at the number on the plateau. There were currently only 8,000 people left. Immortal Toya looked in the direction of the desert. It seems that Senior Ling has already settled the matter over there. The corner of Old Li's mouth twitched. Senior Ling actually closed the gate on his own? Although they were standing in this position, the two of them could see everything clearly from the top. Immortal Toya rubbed his forehead. I realized that I seriously underestimated Senior Ling's strength. Didn't I? Old Li's eyes narrowed into slits as he sweated profusely. I've heard Secretary Dakong mention that 6 years ago, the gate between worlds, the 10 founding generals combined their strength, before they could close it. Although it said that they didn't do their best at the time, Senior Ling closed it too easily. This door can't be fake, right? Immortal Toya. Not necessarily, because the conference room outside just reported that the fluctuations from the gate between worlds that were detected earlier have indeed disappeared. If that's true, Senior Ling is really too scary. Old Li sighed. He had previously predicted Wang Ling's true realm, but now that he was witnessing it with his own eyes, it was even scarier than he had imagined. Old Li felt that even if he spent his entire life, he might never be able to catch up to Wang Ling's realm. Immortal Toya and Old Li were silent as they gazed into the distance. As the chief commander and deputy commander of this military training, both of them tacitly chose to swallow the matter at that moment. This was the choice of smart people, and to a certain extent, it was a show of respect for the senior. If they leaked this matter and this senior found out, they would definitely die a very ugly death. But now doesn't seem to be the time to relax. Senior Toya should have already sensed it, right? Old Li looked into the distance with a solemn expression and didn't relax at all. I sensed it, it seems that something has snuck in. Immortal Toya pinched his white chin and nodded. When we entered the small world earlier, I actually already smelled it. It's a very nasty smell and it's very evil. Moreover, the aura is very evil. Compared to the vigorous vitality of these children, the aura is like the dirt left behind by years of not washing after using the toilet. Old Li, Senior Ling smelled it before we entered the small world. Otherwise. Immortal Toya narrowed his eyes and smiled. I cultivate alchemy all year round, and my 5 senses are influenced by spirit herbs, so I'm exceptionally sensitive. In particular, I'm even more sensitive than the noses of some spirit dogs when it comes to sensing auras. The old secretary has been sending me out to do anti-drug work. A few months ago there was an organization called the Holy Cavalry that was selling fake milk powder, and I personally tested it. After listening to Immortal Toya, Old Li silently lowered his head and fell into deep thought. Chapter 229. After that, Wang Ling teleported Wang Ming and the others to a warehouse in the central district, which currently had no one hiding inside. Furthermore, it happened to be in the middle of the poisonous fog, which was a pretty good location. After suffering Wang Ming's inhumane 10 subduing dragon slaps, Super Chen woke up from his coma. His face had been slapped so hard that there were red finger marks on both sides. You're awake. Wang Ming shook his hand, the slap had hurt a lot. Force was mutual, and a Foundation establishment cultivator's body hurt a lot more than an ordinary person's. Air. Brother Air? Super Chin realized that his saliva was dripping to the ground, and there seemed to be some traces left on Wang Ming's shoulder. He was so scared that he jumped up in a flurry. Brother Air, I'm sorry. When the military training is over, give me your clothes, I'll wash them for you. Forget it, it's just a set of clothes. Wang Ming waved his hand generously. Super Chin already had no recollection of what had happened before and during his coma. He only remembered having a very sweet dream. He had dreamed that he had won glory for the country in the Olympics. This had been his lifelong dream, but why on earth had he suddenly fallen asleep in the middle of the military training and had such a sweet dream? Super Chin scratched his head in distress and couldn't quite figure it out. Actually, this was one of the effects of Wang Ling's Great Purification spell. In addition to clearing the body of toxins, the Great Purification spell also had the effect of clearing distracting thoughts. When a person had no distracting thoughts, they would naturally sleep soundly. Sometimes, when Father Wang was annoyed with revising manuscripts at home, he would have Wang Ling cast the Great Purification spell on him to ensure that he got enough sleep. Wang Ming looked at Super Chen's puzzled expression and gave him the explanation he had prepared beforehand. We were ambushed by a group of people just now and you were hit by the dizzying fog so you fainted. The matter has been resolved now. Oh, I see. Super Chen was suddenly enlightened. There was the sound of a dog barking. Turning around, Super Chen looked down and saw Loopy Toad. Loopy Toad? Why are you here too? Loopy Toad did a great job in counterattacking while you were unconscious. Wang Ming said as he rubbed Loopy Toad's soft dog head. Super Chen was so excited that he hugged Loopy Toad and kissed it. Loopy Toad, you're so awesome. Loopy Toad, when he came back to his senses, he suddenly realized a problem. Only then did he realize that classmate Wang Ling had actually disappeared. After arranging for Wang Ming and the others to a relatively safe location, Wang Ling took action on his own. With someone else around, he couldn't completely let loose. The matter of the gate between worlds seemed to have come to an end, but the mastermind behind the scenes had yet to surface. Actually, Wang Ling had already more or less guessed who it was. He could count on his fingers the number of people in this world who had the ability to summon the gate between worlds. He had seen with his own eyes how the old devil had summoned a devil spirit in his fight with that young man from Immortal Mansion. This old devil had a lot of tricks up his sleeves, and definitely had subdued more than one devil spirit before. If he sacrificed a bunch of devil spirits and converted them into demon energy to power the gate between worlds, it was entirely possible. So for Wang Ling, the key now was to find the old devil's location. But the devil's aura was too well hidden. On one hand, Wang Ling had to avoid being noticed by the students in the small world, and on the other hand, he also had to avoid alerting the headmaster and seniors in the conference room outside, which was quite difficult. Furthermore, Wang Ling had already made up his mind. When he found the old devil, he would use a method similar to boiling a frog in warm water, to silently exhaust the old devil to death. Although Wang Ming had already blocked the old devil's signal, he wasn't sure if he really wouldn't be noticed by the people in the conference room. Sure enough, this slow death method was the best way to deal with this kind of crafty old devil. After making up his mind, Wang Ling turned around and walked out of the dark alley. But he had only taken a few steps when he paused because he noticed a pair of eyes watching him from behind. Who was it? Wang Ling was a little surprised. He had already confirmed that there shouldn't be anyone nearby. Not bad, not bad. You're very perceptive and more outstanding than most of the students here. Wang Ling turned his head slightly and out of the corner of his eye, he saw an old man with a white hedgehog head gradually materialize a dozen or so meters behind him. The moment the old man appeared, the light talisman wrapped around his body like a scale armor was extinguished bit by bit and drifted into the air. This person had actually wrapped himself in the nomological power of the small world, and had completely merged with the aura of the small world. In this state, it was impossible to detect him with normal spiritual senses. Wang Ling immediately sighed in his heart. He had miscalculated. Do you know who I am? The old man with the hedgehog head looked at Wang Ling with a smile. He was wearing a white exercise uniform with a red belt around his waist, and his clothes and belt fluttered gently in the breeze. Wang Ling felt like he was a grandmaster. As for his identity, when Wang Ling saw the huge E character on the right chest of this exercise uniform, he already felt a little powerless to ridicule him. Wang Ling really wanted to ask this old man whether he was from Master Rashi's sect or Master Shin's sect. But given the identity of this person, Wang Ling didn't ask in the end. As a result, the scene fell into silence. After a while, it was still the old man with the hedgehog hair who broke the silence. Previously, I felt the aura of the gate between worlds in the small world, but when I entered here, the aura of the gate between worlds suddenly disappeared. Wang Ling, although I don't know what's going on, I think the person I'm looking for should still be in this small world. So I've been secretly observing the situation in this small world, and it didn't take long for me to find you. Looking at the uniform you're wearing, you should be a student of number 60 high school? The old man narrowed his eyes, and a strange ripple appeared in his pupils as he stared at Wang Ling. Your realm shouldn't be as simple as the foundation establishment stage, right? As soon as the old man said this, Wang Ling felt his scalp go numb. He had really been too careless. He had never expected the legendary General Yi to actually show up here. Was he going to be exposed? Wang Ling was silent and didn't choose to answer. You can't hide it from me. Seeing this, the old man stared at Wang Ling and smiled. You're actually at the golden core stage, right? Wang Ling. Seeing that Wang Ling wasn't speaking, the old man was even more certain of his speculation. You're only in grade 1, but you've already reached the golden core stage. Your future prospects are truly immeasurable. Wang Ling, the old man smiled. I think you're pretty good. How about it? Do you want to be my disciple? I want you. Wang Ling, were all the old seniors these days so straightforward? Chapter 230. It actually wasn't hard to guess General Yi's identity. If it had been a normal student who was bluntly told by General Yi that he wanted to take them as his student, they would probably have already jumped for joy by now. But Wang Ling didn't immediately agree. Right now, continuing to remain silent was probably the best option. Actually, Wang Ling had thought before that it wouldn't be a bad idea to find a surefoot to cover up his identity. But General Yi was, in the end, an old senior in the circle, and also one of the 10 founding generals of Wuxia Nation who had shaken the 4 cities. It would really be too eye-catching to be around such a person. All in all, Wang Ling summed up his encounter with General Yi this time as a mistake. He should have been more careful. However, with this old senior at his side, Wang Ling's plan to go all out and look for the old devil was completely ruined. He absolutely couldn't expose his true strength. For the time being, he would wait and see what General Yi's next move would be. Wang Ling sighed helplessly in his heart as the background music of The Helplessness of the Immortal King rang out in his head. However, Wang Ling's silence didn't make the old man in front of him feel the slightest bit disappointed. Instead, it piqued his interest even more. General Yi's eyes were fixed on Wang Ling, and there seemed to be light in them. Sure enough, I wasn't wrong about you. If a normal student heard that I was taking in a disciple, they would probably jump for joy, right? Wang Ling, General Yi, you're very good. You've successfully attracted my attention. Wang Ling already didn't have the energy to ridicule the strong sense of a domineering CEO meeting the heroine of a romance novel. General Yi stepped forward and put one hand on Wang Ling's shoulder. I don't think you know me well enough. Do you want to make some big news with me and try to improve our relationship? Don't worry, it won't affect your chances in the survival contest. Since I've taken a fancy to you, I'm going to give you some good luck. As long as you're willing to follow me, I promise you great luck and you'll get chicken dinner tonight. It won't take up too much of your time. Wang Ling once again chose to remain silent. Now, what other choice did he have? General Yi actually wasn't very tall, and actually looked about the same height as Jinka. In order to put his hand on Wang Ling's shoulder, his entire body floated up. Wang Ling was a little astonished. To be able to directly float in the air without the help of a magic artifact, he was already a true immortal. I'm going to capture an old enemy. This time, I must capture him with my own hands. Saying that, General Yi looked in one direction and said lightly, guess where he's hiding? As an old rival of Devil Emperor Guapai, it could be said that General Yi's understanding of the old devil was completely beyond Wang Ling's imagination. Based on what I know of him, given his character, if I can't detect his scent on the surface of the small world, then there's only one possibility left. General Yi looked deeply at the ground under his feet. 3 minutes later, he dug a pit in the ground with his bare hands that could accommodate at least 3 people. General Yi, I'm guessing he's definitely gone underground, and he's using a magic treasure to hide his aura. Wang Ling looked at the huge pit under his feet, a little puzzled in his eyes. So, why did he have to use his bare hands? This guy is very cautious. If he uses spirit talismans like the Earth expansion spell, even the slightest fluctuation will immediately attract his attention. So at this time, choosing to use his bare hands is the best method. Saying that, General Yi jumped into the pit lightly. When he was done, he even waved at Wang Ling, who was outside the pit. Come in. If you don't come in, how can I take you flying? Wang Ling looked indifferently at the deep pit, but in the end still jumped in. After all, this was an invitation from an old senior, and it wasn't good for him to refuse. General Yi was famous, and to be honest, Wang Ling was quite nervous. Wang Ling felt that the key now was to stabilize the rhythm and do his best to behave like a junior, and be a little more natural. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Wang Ling really didn't want to directly knock this old senior out and then forcibly erase his memory. If a senior of this realm really did that, he would definitely give himself away. As soon as Wang Ling stepped into the pit, General Yi used a spell to fill it up. This completely turned the place into an enclosed space. Wang Ling was actually quite curious as to what this old senior was going to do next. General Yi's body rippled with spirit energy, and a wisp of protective immortal light lingered around him, completely illuminating the enclosed space. He carefully sensed the old devil's aura and smiled confidently. As I expected, this guy has been hiding underground. Furthermore, he's now planning to absorb the vitality of the thousands of students here to fill up his skeleton and rebuild his body, so that he can resurrect himself. Wang Ling was a little surprised. It sounded like this was the old devil's private plan, but General Yi actually knew about it? Are you wondering why I even know about this? General Yi chuckled. Back then, this old man carelessly messed things up and sealed himself in the stone ghost mask. Although he managed to escape the strongest wave of arrest organized by the country at that time, he still managed to escape. Although he managed to escape the strongest wave of capture organized by the state at the time, he used the stone ghost mask to escape by accident. However, he would never have expected that the palm sword that I used to attack him at the end had a locator chip in it, which directly hit his soul. So all these years I've been secretly monitoring his movements. Wang Ling, but unfortunately the proposal to capture him had just been submitted to the higher-ups. This old guy was actually so savage that he directly attacked those 20 or so delivery riders first. Because of this, considering the corresponding danger to society, the capture was brought forward. General E continued, I've already personally called the insurance department to deal with those innocent delivery riders quickly through the green channel, and rebuild their bodies as soon as possible while their souls are still intact. As for the array that the old guy is preparing to absorb vitality, it was in fact impossible from the start. The most important part of the array to absorb vitality and rebuild the body is the skeleton. That ancient almighty skeleton is in fact fake. Wang Ling, General E, when our Wuxia nation was founded back then, we were best at making knockoffs and imitations, the kind that could do anything. Wang Ling, so the skeleton that the old guy found is actually a high imitation that I specially prepared for him. When I took it out back then, I was almost criticized. General E heaved a deep sigh. Do you know that crystal coffin in Wuxia nation's national palace? Every year, the school should organize a group of people to worship this senior. In fact, the skeleton in the crystal coffin is a high imitation. The real skeleton has already been hidden. Crystal coffin? Wang Ling. The skeleton in this crystal coffin belonged to Wuxia nation's founding ancestor. General E, looking at your expression, I'm sure you've already guessed it. I took the high imitation skeleton that the old guy is using now from the crystal coffin. Chapter 231. Wang Ling had thought that there weren't many things in the world that could shock him, but he was still taken aback by General Yi's words. Wang Ling was stupefied. He had always had a poker face since birth, but at that moment he was genuinely shocked by General Yi to the point where he revealed a rare expression, and the corners of his mouth couldn't stop twitching. Was there such a thing? Even if the skeleton in the crystal coffin was an imitation, it was still an imitation of Wuxia's founding ancestor. Would it really be okay to do this? At that moment, Wang Ling and the old man stood in the pit, the protective immortal light emitted by the old man illuminating the entire pit. Wang Ling could clearly see General Yi's calm expression. So, everything is for the sake of catching that old devil. He's found a body double and wants to leave the stone ghost mask. If he really succeeds in reconstructing his body, I'm afraid that Wuxia nation won't be peaceful anymore. Furthermore, there's all kinds of evidence that this devil still has remnants in the world and they aren't weak. Wang Ling completely understood now. It turned out that this had been a trap from the very beginning. Because a monitoring chip had been inserted into the old devil's soul, he had wanted to cooperate with the master of Shadow Stream Jiang Luiyue, and the series of events that had unsealed the stone ghost mask to the current reconstruction of his physical body. General E actually knew all about it. What was even more frightening was that if General E had hidden the monitoring chip in the palm sword back then, This trap had actually been laid out 1,000 years ago. Wang Ling wasn't a gossipy person. Even if General Yi hadn't said anything, Wang Ling actually didn't care at all. The reason why he wanted to fix that old devil was entirely because the other party had disturbed his life. Not only that, it had also seriously delayed his studies. This was what Wang Ling couldn't stand the most, of course. Wang Ling also understood very well why General Yi had told him so much. General Yi completely regarded him as one of his own. He wasn't joking when he said he wanted to take him in as a disciple, he was serious. Do you know who made that monitoring chip? It seemed like there was still some time before the final plan to pull in the net, so General Yi simply sat cross-legged on the ground with a very calm expression on his face. In our Wuxia Nation's Cultivation Academy of Science, there is a youngster known as the strongest brain. This chip was developed according to his formula and could guarantee that it would not be detected by the devil. I'll introduce him to you if there's a chance next time. Wang Ling, General Yi looked at the time and realized that there was still plenty of time left. In a while the operation to pull in the net will begin. This old man will make the first move to lure that devil out, and the rest of the 100 or so people will join forces to lay down the 5 elements grand array and capture that devil. Previously, the demon escaped because of the purple gold gourd. As long as we trap him in the array, he won't be able to escape even with the purple gold gourd. Wang Ling seemed to have learned a big news from these few words. No wonder there were more than 100 instructors entering the small world this time. It turned out that all of this was planned. Furthermore, judging from the old man's words, Wang Ling felt that the original purpose of the survival contest this time had probably been to attract the old devil. General Yi had long known that this devil wanted to absorb vitality to reconstruct his body. This old guy is really slow now, but that turning array isn't easy to set up. General Yi sighed and was a little impatient from waiting. Then he straightaway took out his phone and started to surf the internet. Wang Ling glanced at it and realized that it was a chat window. General Yi was using an account with the ID 9 times in one night to chat with someone else. Wait a minute, 9 times in one night? Wasn't this the 9 times man from that chat group? The 9 times man who had claimed to be a rookie in the chat group back then, and who had bought a fake sunflower manual online and been duped into buying it. Wang Ling found it a little inconceivable. He had never expected this 9 times man to actually be General Yi. This is a group I joined a few years ago and it's pretty interesting. General Yi said as he scrolled through the screen. A lot of people think that us old guys in the cultivation circle are a bunch of aloof poker faces, but this old man has discovered a problem. In fact, as we get older, as our cultivation deepens, our playfulness also increases. Wang Ling, General Yi, sometimes if you create a smooth account to join this kind of chat group and communicate more with the juniors, you might reap unexpected rewards, and even gain new enlightenment on the meaning of Tao. Wang Ling. Actually, Wang Ling's impression of the 9 times man in the group was that he had been a very lively and amusing person from the very beginning. Furthermore, General Yi himself was also an old urchin, so they were quite compatible in this aspect. However, General Yi was probably the only one who could disguise himself as a rookie and sneak into the chat group to chat with the juniors in the circle. This chat group had been created by Immortal Toya for some of the founding elders and star active users of the cultivation forum. It could be said that everyone in the group was a trusted aide. Immortal Toya had investigated the identities of those who could join the group behind their backs and verified the relevant information before letting them in. As one of the 10 founding generals of Wuxia Nation, it was simply too easy for General Yi to forge an identity. After chatting for a while, General Yi began to talk to Wang Ling about some of the people in the chat group one by one. The group leader, grenade-throwing senior immortal, was actually the disciple of a good friend of mine back then. I didn't expect him to grow up so much in the blink of an eye. His chivalrous spirit, as well as his fondness for getting into a dead end when it comes to inexplicable things, he's in line with his Shifu. When General Yi said this, Wang Ling inexplicably thought of those broccoli that grenade-throwing senior immortal had been thinking about. Immortal Toya, a level 9 alchemist. Back in the Shao clan's alchemist competition, he single-handedly challenged the Shao clan's top 10 alchemists and returned victorious. General Yi seemed to know everyone's story very well. This junior's future is bright. This old man has always wanted to find an opportunity to meet him, so for this survival contest, I had Little Dakong recruit him to be the chief instructor. Wang Ling, Little Dakong? There's also the group manager, Silian Jinren. To be honest, she gave this old man a lot of inspiration in this operation to capture the old devil this time. But I'm still most interested in this person. Saying this, General Yi swiped the screen, and finally locked onto one person in the list of group members. Chapter 232. In order to keep a low profile in the chat group, Wang Ling had chosen to use a very old-fashioned avatar. It was a man with a cigarette in his mouth and a black hat, with skin so white that it was more devilish than skin. The avatar even had a classical filter on it. Given the current development of the times, this was non-mainstream. Wang Ling sucked in a cold breath. He thought he had already kept a low profile, but never thought that he would still attract General Yi's attention. For the first time, Wang Ling felt that he had completely miscalculated. He had been on guard against so many people, but never had he thought that the person he should have been most wary of was right next to him. Moreover, General Yi's acuity could be said to have completely exceeded Wang Ling's imagination. The reason why this old man is interested in this person is purely because of his avatar. General Yi pinched his mustache and said, "There are a lot of friends in my circle of friends who like to disguise their identities to tease juniors. They all use similar methods, which is to choose a rather silly avatar and match it with a silly-sounding online name to hide their identity." Wang Ling, General Yi, consider this old man's little common sense in life. When you go online in the future, never judge someone's identity based on their avatar and online name. Who knows, these people might be big shots behind the scenes. For example, I gave them a name before, Blooming Blossoms Big Brother's Posture. Wang Ling, if you meet someone who looks like a big shot, don't be in a hurry to curry favor with them, or it'll have the opposite effect. General Yi said very seriously, in this case the most ideal method is to silently top up 10 yuan as a member first. After about 10 minutes, General Yi's incessant chatter finally subsided. Don't mind me being long-winded, this old man is teaching you modern cultivation communication skills. As long as you can grasp them firmly, ascending to immortality won't be a dream. General Yi said, like before, this old man knew of a junior surnamed Song who somehow managed to sneak into a cultivation chat group. In just 5 months, his realm advanced by leaps and bounds and he was reborn. So this old man isn't making this up, it's all a case study. Wang Ling, at the end of the conversation, the underground space instantly fell silent. There was silence for a long time. In the end, it was General Yi who broke the silence. I can already sense that the devil can't hold back any longer, and the rotation array is about to be activated. After that, as long as we successfully activate the 5 elements formation, we will be able to ensure that this fiend can't escape with any other magical equipment. We will exhaust him like boiling a frog in warm water. Wang Ling was startled again. Boiling a frog in warm water. This General Yi had actually thought of the same method of attacking the old devil as him. Previously, this old man made an agreement with the 100 instructors in the outside world to throw a cup as a signal. As long as this old man throws a cup, as long as they hear it, they will immediately act at the same time. For some reason, General Yi's unperturbed face actually turned a little red at the mention of this cup-throwing operation, and he looked a little excited. Speaking of which, the inspiration for this cup-throwing operation was Tsilian Jinren in that chat group. Wang Ling gazed at General Yi deep in thought. All the plans now showed that the old devil had completely fallen into the trap. If General Yi's plan went smoothly, this devil who struck fear into the hearts of everyone in Huaxiao Nation would draw his last full stop today. However, would the plan really proceed smoothly? In the underground space on the other side, all the preparations for the activation of the array had already been completed. Now, as long as enough spirit energy was injected into the array to activate it, the body transformation spell would be able to activate the array smoothly. But it was at this last step that the old devil hesitated. Standing in front of the array, he cupped his chin in contemplation and didn't make a move. In the stone ghost mask, Jiang Luo asked, "What's wrong, Lord Devil Emperor?" The old devil couldn't help frowning. My venerable self feels that something isn't right. First of all, he realized that the gate between worlds hadn't descended smoothly. He had been concentrating on setting up the array earlier, and hadn't been distracted by what was happening with the gate between worlds. The only thing the old devil could be sure of was that without the 10 founding generals working together to close the door in this small world, there was absolutely no one who could close the door on their own. So he attributed the situation with the gate between worlds to a lack of demon energy. But he had sacrificed 10 void refinement devil spirits before, so why wasn't this demon energy enough? The old devil was now very conflicted. Apart from this matter, everything was going too smoothly for him. From entering the small world to opening up the underground space to setting up the array, there hadn't been the slightest hindrance. You don't know, but my venerable self was actually tricked by my wife once before, and the situation back then was a little similar. At that time, my venerable self was preparing to organize the Guapai army to occupy Huaxiao's national palace, but I didn't expect that old man Yi Jianchuan to use an empty city stratagem on me, and my army was wiped out in an instant. The old devil frowned and said, "Actually, before attacking the city, my venerable self had already noticed some clues, and I was going to cancel the plan. But my foolish wife insisted that my venerable self go all out, and in the end my venerable self was in a sorry state." Jiang Luiyue was also startled. "So Lord Devil Emperor thinks that this is a trap?" "Very likely." The old devil said, "Like the previous attack on the city before we attacked the national palace, all the plans went smoothly. There wasn't the slightest hiccup. And it's actually the same this time. Apart from the slight accident with the gate between worlds, everything else has been going too smoothly. This is the small world that old man Yi Jianchuan has set up, and he knows my venerable self inside out. I've been in the small world for so long, but he actually didn't make the slightest move? And now that I think about it, it was a little too easy to obtain this skeleton, as if it had been prepared for my venerable self in advance. Jiang Liwei, could it be that Lord Devil Emperor is overthinking things?" Gazing at the glowing ancient almighty skeleton in front of him, the old devil sighed slightly. "I hope so, but those 100 or so people outside make me feel uneasy. If they join hands to set up a great array, even my venerable self will find it very difficult to escape." Jiang Luiyue shook her head. "Junior feels that Lord Devil Emperor is overthinking things. Lord Devil Emperor is only one step away from being completely reborn. As long as you borrow this body to be reborn, who in this world can do anything to you?" The old devil carefully considered Jiang Luiyue's words, and in the end nodded. "That's true, riches and honor come from danger. It looks like my venerable self is a little overcautious." As he spoke, the old devil's fingertips glowed with spirit light, and vigorous spirit energy spread out to envelop the skeleton. The body-turning array was thus activated. At the same time, in the underground space on the other end, General Yi almost instantly received the signal for the old devil's array to be activated. "It's been more than 1,000 years. As expected, the mine eye buried in the palm sword is the key to victory. By the way, have you heard of the Fate Stone Gate?" General Yi sighed as he looked at Wang Ling. Wang Ling was astonished. He had read in ancient texts that this was a gate that could be used to freely travel back and forth and reset the timeline. Who would have thought that Huaxiao Nation would actually use this trump card to deal with the old devil? But Wang Ling also felt that it was a little strange, because legend had it that this Fate Stone Gate had been sealed by the founding ancestor of Huaxiao Nation a long time ago. In a situation where the founding ancestor wasn't around, how had the seal been broken? Back then, it took a lot of effort to send the surveillance chip on the devil back to the past. Speaking up to this point, General Yi's expression instantly turned serious. Wang Ling also frowned as he looked in one direction, where he sensed a strange fluctuation of spirit energy. Was it about to begin? Now it's time to smash the cup, and the final plan to draw in the net. General Yi narrowed his eyes, then stuck his right hand into his lapel to finally pull out a long string of pink bras, which he threw heavily on the ground. "Wang Ling, what F*** king smashing cup signal? So it was a bra. Wait a minute." Chapter 233. This long string of bras had been specially made by General Yi for this plan. When the bras fell to the ground, the minute fluctuations of spirit energy would instantly connect with the 100 or so instructors around them. It could only be said that General Yi was General Yi in the end. Wang Ling had to admit that even if he cultivated for another 100 years, he still wouldn't be able to catch up to him. A minute later, the instructors standing on the roofs of the small world received the signal at the same time. With Immortal Toya in the lead, they all started to lock onto the old devil's coordinates and set up the 5 elements great array. Coordinates locked. Array confirmed. Spirit energy reserves confirmed. Activate array. Up in a tall building, Immortal Toya sat with a solemn expression on his face as he gave instructions. Spirit energy surged out of the 100 or so drill instructors nearby at the last command, "Activate the array." Just like the turtle wave technique, spirit energy surged out of their palms. In a flash, 100 rays of light condensed into a 5-colored magic ball above the confirmed coordinates. Then the magic ball spread out to form a huge 6-pointed star array which slowly covered the sky. This scene was really too spectacular. It was like watching fireworks at night, and was even more magnificent than the Shao family compound's heavenly flame fireworks party. One by one, the students from the 6 schools stopped in their tracks. What was going on? Was the godly punishment circle coming? All of a sudden the students felt a sense of panic. All of them stopped fighting and returned to the building. Wang Ling paused next to General Yi. The 5 elements great array was a type of array that had only been heard of in ancient books, but had never been set up by anyone with their own eyes. It was a powerful array that had only been set up 1,000 years ago, when the demon gods of the gate between worlds had invaded. Because it had a very strong restraining power, and because it consumed too much energy, it was specially used by almighties to deal with demon gods. The moment the 5 elements great array was activated, the old devil could already sense the fluctuations from far away underground. Sure enough, he had fallen into a trap. Furthermore, the old devil immediately realized that this was a trap set up by his old rival. Yi Jianchuan, I knew you wouldn't let me off so easily. The old devil looked up at the sky and took a deep breath as he pondered the glowing skeleton in front of him. He should have realized earlier that there was something wrong with this skeleton. What's wrong, Lord Devil Emperor? Jiang Liwa asked from the stone ghost mask. I've fallen into a trap. This ancient almighty skeleton is a replica, and replicas can't activate the turning array at all. The old devil looked up at the sky. Also, my venerable self can already smell the 5 elements great array. I've already set up an inescapable net outside. With the 5 elements great array here, even the purple gold gourd's fog won't be able to escape. Then what should we do now? Jiang Liwei had never expected things to turn out this way. The only thing we can do now is to go all out. The old devil sighed and broke out of the ground with the stone ghost mask. He could already sense 2 familiar auras slowly approaching him from afar. Even though it had been 1,000 years since they last met, it was still a familiar scent. The old devil narrowed his eyes, and then suddenly realized a problem. Wait a minute, why were there 2 familiar auras? This aura belongs to Yi Jianchuan? The other one. Then the old devil saw an old man and a youngster appear in the distance as they slowly walked toward him. Looking at the youngster, the old devil broke out in a cold sweat. Who could tell him why Killer Taoist would appear in such a place? And wearing AF*** King School uniform? The 5-colored halo of the 5 elements great array shrouded the ground in a hazy haze, and the ground was shrouded in a layer of mist, which made it look like a fairyland. Behind General Yi, Wang Ling stood face to face with the old devil. General Yi took the initiative to shield Wang Ling behind him, and wrapped him in a seemingly superfluous protective immortal light, which instead made Wang Ling feel a little uncomfortable. This protective immortal light wasn't even half as strong as the protective golden light of his sage body. In fact, when he had read about the grudge between General Yi and the old devil in the history books, he had actually wondered what it would be like if these 2 old rivals, who had crossed 1,000 years, met again one day. In the end, this collision wasn't as intense as he had imagined. The 5 elements great array had already been set up, and the old devil knew that he was doomed. Given his current body, which wasn't at its peak, he didn't have the strength to fight General Yi at all. And the most frightening thing was that the junior who had thwarted his plans twice was actually following behind his old rival. At that moment, the old devil felt a little hopeless. This old man has always been very curious about how you will retaliate against me when you reappear in this world. I never thought that when we meet again you would actually be in a woman's body. General Yi looked at the old devil lightly. Surrender and come back with me, you have no chance of winning. The old devil grit his teeth and stared at the old man. Old Yi, my venerable self asks you. What's your relationship with the junior behind you? General Yi laughed. He stood on his tiptoes and floated in the air as he reached out to rub Wang Ling's head. This is the new disciple I plan to take in. Don't you think he has a good aptitude? Wang Ling, the old devil, you want to take him as a disciple. That's right, he's already at the golden core stage at such a young age. With this kind of talent, I'm really looking forward to his future realms. General Yi looked at Wang Ling with a kind smile. After hearing this, the old devil was speechless for a very long time. Not long ago, the old devil had seen Wang Ling effortlessly block the immortal mansion youngster's golden crescent moon, and he had already come to a conclusion in his heart. This youngster's strength was unfathomable. Even if the old devil had recovered to his peak condition, the odds would at most be 50-50. So after hearing General Yi's words, the old devil deeply felt that his old adversary seemed to have misunderstood this junior's understanding of him. The old devil took a deep breath, looked at Wang Ling first, and then finally turned his gaze back to the hedgehog head elder in front of the youngster. Oldie, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? It was obvious that the old man was a little puzzled by this baffling question. What does it have to do with you which disciple I take in? Or do you want to harm my disciple? The old devil didn't say anything as he quietly swept his gaze over Wang Ling. He saw Wang Ling take a few steps back, and it was clear that he didn't want to get involved in the grudge between the two of them. In the end, the old devil just pursed his lips and simply swallowed everything that had happened between him and Wang Ling. The old devil sighed. He knew that now that things had come to this, there was no point in saying anything more. Even though he knew that he had no chance of winning this fight. But as a devil emperor, even at the last moment, the old devil still held on to his dignity. Chapter 234. This was supposed to be an unprecedented showdown that spanned 1,000 years and would go down in the annals of history, but no one expected it to unfold like this. The 5 elements great array's hexagram array imprisoned the old devil, and the heart of the small world was shrouded in a multicolored haze. In the conference room outside, Secretary Dakong, Jua, the headmasters of the 6 schools, as well as the students hiding in the buildings, were all witnesses to this showdown. Of course, neither the old secretary nor the headmasters of the 6 schools chose to intervene, as they were well aware of the grudge between these two people. This showdown was easier than Wang Ling had imagined. Standing in the distance, he saw a dim sword light emerge from General Yi's palm. This was General Yi's famous consummate skill, palm sword. Back then, it was this final palm sword that had directly struck the old devil's vitals and sent the monitoring chip, which Wang Ming had invented 1,000 years later, into the old devil's soul. Old Yi, your palm sword really makes my venerable self miss it. The old devil sneered. Now that things had come to this, he already had nothing to fear. A mist of blood and purple chi dispersed from his palm, which finally condensed into several purple-black magic balls that lingered between his fingers. The chaos ball was the old devil's famous skill. Neither of these two people's famous skills were the kind of domineering and cool great spells with flying special effects that filled the sky. Instead, they were spells that could be condensed at will and launched a timely attack. In fact, the palm sword and the chaos ball were very similar in nature. They weren't special effects spells, but the kind that had powerful destructive power with a small light effect. However, although these two spells seemed easy, not everyone could learn them. To compress such a high density of spiritual energy into the palm and fingers required extremely precise manipulation techniques and terrifying concentration. At that moment, both of them had used their famous skills. But the outcome had already been decided. Confined by the 5 elements great array and before he had recovered to his peak condition, the strength that the old devil could exert was really too limited. General Yi didn't use his full strength, because he didn't need to overstep his bounds. In this case, even if he only used 50% of his strength, it would be enough to take down this devil. After condensing their famous skills, the two people stared at each other for a moment. A minute later, General Yi was the first to act. The palm sword in his hand slashed through the air, and the sky immediately changed color. A formless wave spread out from the air, and everyone within a radius of 100 miles could feel it. This wave had already spread to the ends of this small world. This white figure dressed in kung fu attire was advancing in his direction. Under the situation that their realms were not equal to each other, and under the confinement of the 5 elements formation, his eyes could not catch up at all. All he could rely on now was his intuition. After exchanging blows with General Yi several times in the past, the two of them had a certain level of understanding of each other's attack patterns. The old devil raised his hand and blocked the blow with great effort. When the palm sword collided with the chaos ball, there was a huge boom, and the powerful vibration directly caused the old devil to spit out a mouthful of blood. In the end, he managed to block the attack, but he suffered 800 casualties. The fluctuation of the palm sword pierced into his body like an electric current, shaking his internal organs so much that they spasmed. His knees trembled non-stop and he gritted his teeth, doing his best not to kneel down. Old Yi, blood seeped out of the old devil's front teeth and stained his mouth red. At that moment, even though the old devil was draped in Jiang Liuyue's body, it was as if everyone could see the old devil's figure from the past. He had always been someone who refused to admit defeat. No matter how serious his injuries were, he was unwilling to fall, and would stubbornly stand on his feet. After crossing swords 1,000 years ago in just one collision, the old devil had already lost all ability to fight. General Yi's palm sword also dispersed, and he no longer condensed it. He slowly walked up to the old devil and looked at him. You've always been like this. Back then, if you had confessed to your crimes earlier, your proudest disciple, immortal Shi Pai, wouldn't have been executed under Leifeng Pagoda after being struck by lightning for 10 years. My venerable self just wanted to find her. What crime? The old devil clutched his chest and sneered. Resurrection goes against the laws of heavenly Tao. Going against the laws of heaven will never end well. General E narrowed his eyes. And you should be well aware that there is no true way to resurrect someone in this world. Of course my venerable self knows that. The old devil roared. That's why my venerable self hopes to find her reincarnation. I heard that the Wheel of Time in the National Palace works, and can find a specific person's reincarnation. Hearing this, General E was stupefied. So, the reason why the Guapai army attacked the National Palace 1,000 years ago wasn't to rebel, but for the sake of the Wheel of Time? Rebel? I don't have that ability. The old devil smiled bitterly. The Wheel of Time was my venerable self's real goal. At that time she was already on the verge of death, so my venerable self could only fight for her. Unfortunately, when I broke in, the National Palace was empty, and I knew then that I had fallen into a trap. The old devil's explanation made everyone inside and outside the small world fall silent. After a long time, General E took a deep breath. So you did all this for your wife? What else? The old devil rolled his eyes. Hearing this, the faces of the headmasters outside the small world and Secretary Dakong couldn't help twitching. This pack of dog food had really caught them off guard. Seeing the speechless expression on the old man's face, the old devil asked suspiciously, "Don't tell me that the Wheel of Time actually doesn't exist." "No, don't worry about that. The Wheel of Time does indeed exist." The corners of General Yi's mouth couldn't help twitching. "What I want to say is, although it's a forbidden weapon, if there are special circumstances, you can submit a report and apply to use it." The old devil, Wang Ling. "Of course, this process is very troublesome." General E was silent for a while before he said, "But given your realm at your peak and your status in the cultivation circle before you organized the Guapai army, as long as you made a few more meritorious deeds for the country, it would be completely possible for you to apply to use it." The old devil. At this point, the scene fell silent. After 1,000 years of fighting, in the end, they had shot themselves in the foot. No matter who it was, they wouldn't feel good about this outcome. Resting his hands on his knees, the old devil smiled bitterly, and there was a hint of sadness in his laughter, as if fate were toying with him. General E looked at him and said very indifferently, "If you agree to leave with me for interrogation and kneel down to beg me, this old man can make the decision for you and help you drive the Wheel of Time to find her reincarnation. I beg you." The old devil stared at General E with a burning gaze. He didn't kneel down, but he didn't hesitate in the slightest when he spoke. Chapter 235. For a very long time, General E was silent. He saw that the old devil's knees were trembling and he wouldn't kneel no matter what. This was a stubborn man who refused to kneel even though he had suffered a very serious internal injury. Even though the old devil had done a lot of wrong things as his opponent for 1,000 years, General E had to admit that he was indeed a respectable man. "Can't you change that stubborn donkey temper of yours?" General E looked at the old devil and sighed deeply. "Forget it now that things have come to this. If you're willing to come back with me to stand trial. If you don't want to kneel, it's fine." The old devil raised his eyes and they lit up. "Really? Before you are punished, this old man will investigate her reincarnation for you. Since this is my promise to you, I will naturally fulfill it." "But..." General E lowered his eyes slightly, his dark pupils bottomless. There was a flash of spirit light in his hand, and a pair of crystal handcuffs appeared. "You have to put these on." The moment the handcuffs appeared, Wang Ling's eyes flashed slightly, because he could sense that they contained the same material as the talisman seal on his arm. Wang Ming had once told him that this material came from an extraterrestrial or meteorite, and was very difficult to refine. Even if you used the most sophisticated equipment to repeatedly extract it, you would only be able to extract a few micrograms after several years. This mysterious material in the talisman seal played a very important role in suppressing Wang Ling's aura. "I remember that there are only 2 of these in the whole country? In order to deal with my venerable self, you used the 5 elements great array and the spirit shackles. You really went through a lot of trouble." The old devil took the handcuffs and smiled bitterly. He put them on without hesitation, so straightforwardly that General E found it a little hard to believe. General E smiled slightly. "I thought you would refuse." The old devil, "In this situation, it's useless for my venerable self to struggle. I might as well be a little more refreshed in order to see my silly wife's reincarnation as soon as possible." General E, "I couldn't tell that you were actually so infatuated," the old devil said. "Just now your palm sword hurt me. Sword chi surged in my body, and my venerable self used spirit energy to resist it, which directly paralyzed my peripheral nerves and froze my legs. Hearing this, the corners of General Yi's mouth twitched fiercely. So this was the real reason why you didn't kneel. The 5 elements great array which had been used to resist the invasion of the demon gods from the gate between worlds back then, and this spirit shackles could be said to have been used to capture the old devil this time. As the chief planner of this operation, General Yi had already given it his all. June 15th, the 8th Wednesday of the semester. On this day, during the joint military training exercise organized by the 6 schools, the old devil was put on the spirit shackles and arrested. This was definitely a historic moment. After the old devil put on the spirit shackles, General Yi seized all the magic treasures he had hidden in the chaotic space, including the purple gold gourd which had helped the old devil escape so many times. Many of the magic treasures taken out of the chaotic space had been forcibly seized by the old devil when he had attacked the museum. These magic treasures were taken out one by one. There were a total of 20 to 30 of them, and each of them had a shocking origin. The Tai Chi disc, the Book of 9 Emperors, the Treasure Tree, the Investiture Cauldron, the Chaos Flag, the Sky-Turning Seal, these were all genuine top-notch holy weapons, and they glowed when they were placed on the ground. Wang Ling sized them up from behind General Yi, and was startled by what he saw. Fortunately, the old devil hadn't fully recovered and didn't have the magic energy to operate these holy weapons. Otherwise, in a one-on-one fight, the number of trump cards he had would be terrifying. In addition to the 6 top-notch holy weapons, General Yi also discovered many world-famous special magic weapons. Because of their own particularities, these magic weapons weren't included in the orthodox ranking of magic weapons. Like some evil god figurines, they belonged to the category of problematic magic weapons. At the same time, they had side effects and terrifying abilities that weren't inferior to holy weapons. General Yi looked through them one by one. Among these many special magic weapons, he actually found a few that he didn't recognize. He found a dark gold magic bell with a golden lotus on it. The most amazing thing was that when these 2 magic weapons touched each other, they actually burst out with endless green light. General Yi looked at the old devil in astonishment. What's this? Wearing the spirit shackles, the old devil identified them. Oh, these are the golden climbing lotus and Shimanqing. If you're exposed to that green light for 2 minutes, it can make a person shorter. General Yi. Wang Ling. Then General Yi pointed to a glowing pad and asked, "All right, then what's this? Period pad? I never thought you'd have this kind of hobby? Don't tell me you've changed sex after possessing a woman's body?" The old devil. This is the sky-mending towel which is used to mend space cracks. Given my current body, I can't freely travel through space without this sky-mending towel. General Yi had thought that the magic weapons he had invented were already strange enough, but he never thought that there would be someone who was even stronger than him. General Yi couldn't help sighing with emotion. Sure enough, he still had room to improve on the path of inventing magic weapons. Wang Ling. While General Yi was taking inventory of the magic weapons, Immortal Toya also came over to his side and smiled as he congratulated him from the bottom of his heart. General Yi's palm sword is like a thunderclap to my ears. This junior is truly blessed to be able to see it today. That's easy. If you want to see it again next time, send me a WeChat message and I'll cut you a fruit. General Yi waved his hand generously. Immortal Toya. By the way, the 5 elements great array caused quite a ruckus. Are the students all right? General Yi asked with some concern. During the confrontation just now, the survival contest was suspended. I've already told the students to hide in the buildings through the electronic handbook. Currently, there are more than 8,000 people left, Immortal Toya answered truthfully. That's good. After I bring this devil out for interrogation, the competition can continue as normal. General Yi nodded, then turned his gaze to Wang Ling. Oh, by the way, let me tell you first, this number 60 high kid has a very good route. I intend to train him as a disciple. Immortal Toya felt that he was very far away, but he could already sense the bitterness in Wang Ling's eyes. He felt that he should excuse Ling Jinren. General Yi, this can't be done. General Yi frowned. What? Because, in this crisis, Immortal Toya stepped forward, put his arm around Wang Ling's shoulder, and then abruptly pulled him toward his chest. He's mine. General Yi. After saying that, this handsome gray-haired man stealthily glanced at Wang Ling's expression out of the corner of his eye. Whoa. Chapter 236. Wang Ling knew that Immortal Toya was exonerating him, but this was also the first time a man had pulled him to his chest. When these two good-looking youngsters were together in this manner, Wang Ling instantly thought of a famous dish that Mother One had once cooked, curry Ju. General Yi looked at Wang Ling with a little pity in his eyes. So he's already your disciple? Immortal Toya. Yes, senior, I took him in as my direct disciple a long time ago. This sounded very casual, but in fact, Immortal Toya had thought it over carefully. It wouldn't be good if he casually gave General Yi a specific time frame and gave General Yi a loophole. Thus, this sort of all-purpose phrase like, a long time ago, would often come in handy at times like this. Forget it, since he's your disciple, it won't be good for this old man to rob him of his love. General Yi sighed. I just thought about it carefully. After this old devil comes back with me, I'll have to deal with a lot of things like interrogation and sentencing, so I won't be able to take care of this little student for the time being. You're also very strong, and your skill in alchemy has even surpassed that of the Shao clan who started their career in alchemy. This little student should have good prospects in the future if he follows you, he said as he stared at Immortal Toya. Immortal Toya's fair face flushed slightly. Senior, you flatter me. No, this is the truth. There aren't many juniors who I acknowledge these days. General Yi put his hands behind his back. But I also find it very strange. Since he's your disciple, why don't you announce it to the public? Immortal Toya broke out in a cold sweat at this question. General Yi was a great senior who had started out as an investigator, and he was also very strong. A normal person would have already given himself away under these few questions. However, Immortal Toya reacted very quickly. If I announce it to the public, it'll be good for his academic development, and he won't have to worry too much about the school he graduates from. But this kind of celebrity effect is actually very bad for his growth. Hearing this, General Yi's eyes lit up. He was actually very satisfied with this explanation. What you said makes sense. There are indeed too many juniors nowadays who are too impatient, and it's hard for them to achieve great things. Immortal Toya smiled as he looked at General Yi. So, I earnestly ask Senior to continue hiding this matter for Junior. Since you've said so, and this is your disciple, this old man will definitely agree. General Yi nodded very straightforwardly. There was actually a hint of reluctance in his eyes as he looked at Wang Ling. Little classmate, if we have the chance to meet again in the future, I hope you will improve further. Of course, it was not easy to cultivate to the Golden Core realm at this age. He's much stronger than your senior Adjua. Wang Ling, Immortal Toya sweated. What if * King Jin Dan? Which Golden Core could close the gate between worlds with their bare hands? Then I'll take my leave first. This old devil and his accomplice in the stone ghost mask, the master of Shadow Stream Jiang Luiyue, have both been arrested, and it'll take a long time to interrogate them. I'll leave this match to you. General Yi held onto a spirit shackle, the other end of which was tied to the old devil's spirit shackles. The old devil followed behind General Yi without saying a word. After putting on the spirit shackles, all his spirit energy was sealed, and the old devil was now like an ordinary person. His spiritual senses and 5 senses had all been blocked. Immortal Toya cupped his fists in salute to General Yi and bowed respectfully. Senior, take care. General Yi waved at the two of them, then tore open a space on the spot and led the old devil inside. Just as the space fissure was about to close, a spirit light shot out from inside and landed firmly in Wang Ling's hand. Little classmate, it can be considered fate that we met. You can keep this for now. This old man has promised to give you some good fortune. General Yi and the old devil had already escaped into the space and left. The voice came from far away and directly reached Wang Ling's ears. It was a transparent and warm rune stone with complex and difficult to understand ancient characters engraved on it. It was the size of a palm and looked a little like a shell. Senior Ling, this is? Immortal Toya was also dazed when he saw this object. The corner of Wang Ling's mouth twitched, because this rune stone was the power source of this small world. A rune stone that controls the power source of this small world? Immortal Toya was astonished. The system randomly generates the poisonous fog, but if there's a rune stone with the power of the origin, when the last wave of poisonous fog shrinks, it will converge on the rune stone as the center. Wang Ling, Immortal Toya, so controlling the power of the origin is the same as controlling the destiny circle. Wang Ling, so can you put down your arm first? Sorry, Senior Ling. Immortal Toya hurriedly let go. It seemed that he had accidentally brushed against Ling Jinren's hair just now. It was really super soft and smooth. What brand of shampoo did Ling Jinren use? Oh, wait. That didn't seem to be the point. What the hell? Did Ling Jinren speak just now? Immortal Toya carefully recalled the details just now. While he was shocked, he also had the intoxicated expression of a fangirl. Ling Junren's voice was really nice. After the competition had been suspended for about 3 hours, the survival contest finally resumed. In a large supermarket, He Buffing, Little Peanut and Dopey Guo were all solemnly waiting. The supermarket side door had been blown open by several Shao Clan disciples from God Vision High School who had engaged in a massive firefight earlier. On their side, there were only a dozen or so people hiding in the supermarket, which was a direct drop of more than half of the number at the beginning. "What should we do now?" asked a number 59 high school student. When the competition was suspended earlier, that bunch of grandsons also found a building to hide in. There's not much time left before the last wave of poisonous fog shrinks. We have to find a suitable position as soon as possible. He Buffing frowned. Although we're still in the circle now, we can't guarantee that the next safe zone will be on our side. If we leave the supermarket now, we'll be no different from a live target. Senior He, do you have any ideas? Little Peanut asked. Our position is very poor. We need to win now. Unless the destiny circle refreshes next to us. He Buffing thought for a long while, a mysterious light in his eyes. Actually, we still have a last resort. Chapter 237. Every school, or perhaps every class, would always have a little angel in charge of intelligence and gossip. Number 60 High School's Dopey Guo was one of them. Number 59 High School's Song Kai was the same. Relying on his skill in astrology, Song Kai earned a lot of extra money at school and also made a lot of friends. 1,000 yuan for each divination with no refunds. Thus, as the 13th generation descendant of the Tuchukikanjiji astrology family, Song Kai had always been very confident in astrology. Recently, however, Song Kai had begun to doubt the accuracy of his own astrology. This matter had to start from a while ago. In addition to school, Song Kai had many loyal customers for astrology. In fact, he had also opened an online shop. Song Kai remembered that a few days after his shop had opened, a customer had come over to ask for his recent fortune. Divination was Song Kai's specialty. As long as he knew the other party's zodiac sign and specific date of birth, memorized this information and prayed silently, the final fortune value would be displayed on the crystal ball. Song Kai remembered that day. This was a phenomenon he had never seen before. Because what the crystal ball displayed wasn't the usual fortune value. Instead, it displayed 3 English letters. GCM? Song Kai had thought that his crystal ball had been damaged and the numbers were garbled. In the end, after replacing it with a spare crystal ball at home, the divination result was still those 3 mysterious English letters. Song Kai was going crazy. Who could tell him what the F***K this meant? Therefore, when He Buffing mentioned astrology again and introduced himself in front of the crowd, everyone was shocked. Song Kai indeed felt his scalp go numb. Student Song, your astrology has always been very accurate. Can you see the final heavenly circle through one of us? He Buffing asked. The youngster with gold-rimmed glasses sat in the corner, hugging his knees with a vexed expression on his face. Senior He, my astrology might have failed. How will you know if you don't try again? He Buffing patted Song Kai on the shoulder with a resolute look in his eyes. Song Kai raised his head, his eyes glistening with tears. When a person had doubts about their own life, the most important thing was the encouragement of others. It could be said that He Buffing's encouragement was actually quite important. Song Kai pondered for a long time and looked at the hopeful eyes of many students around him. Finally, Song Kai stood up silently and said to the crowd, "Then, please help me find if there are any crystal balls nearby. If there aren't any, glass products will do as well. The thing that astrology consumes the most is the crystal ball, because every time astrology is launched, a crack would appear on the crystal ball. A crystal ball could only be used 4 times at most because a broken crystal ball would greatly affect the effect of astrology." So it can be replaced with glass? Someone asked. Sure. Song Chai nodded. But if it's not a regular divination crystal ball, other glass products are basically useless after one divination. Also, the accuracy is lower than a regular divination crystal ball, about 10 to 20% lower. Overall, the difference isn't that big. Oh, so that's how it is. The surrounding students all revealed expressions of knowledge. Fortunately, their base was in a large supermarket and there were many glass products to choose from. In the end, Song Kai chose a large electric light bulb that Little Peanut had found. Let's use this. What do we do next? He Buffing asked. Song Kai looked around and said, I'll hold this electric light bulb and perform the astrology. Everyone, hold hands and form a circle around me. This will improve the accuracy of the astrology. Although almost everyone basically lost the courage to hold hands with the opposite sex after finishing 3rd grade in primary school, for the sake of victory, everyone still did as they were told. Holding hands and praying together was the most basic way to improve the accuracy of astrology. 11 After the ceremony was completed, Song Kai nodded with satisfaction, then slowly sat down cross-legged in the center with the electric light bulb in his hand. He took a deep breath and tried to relax as much as possible. Then he gathered his spiritual power on the light bulb in his hand. The light bulb was affected by the spiritual power and lit up with a ding sound. A moment later, there was a bang, and the light bulb directly exploded in Song Kai's hand. The surrounding students were startled. Did he fail? No, it's already a success. Song Kai slowly opened his eyes and looked up at the sky. In 10 seconds, the astrology divination will be reflected in the air. Everyone held their breaths, their eyes fixed on the void. 10 seconds later, the astrology divination slowly unfolded in the air. Song Kai raised his head and once again saw those 3 huge English letters appear in front of him. Song Kai, Mom? Sure enough, my astrology is broken. GCM? What on earth does that mean? In the supermarket, everyone stared at the 3 letters and pondered. Photocatalyst, Guachunmei Engineering? He buffing said several words in a row and then his eyes lit up. Could it be the climax? Everyone, Wang Ling never thought that General Yi would actually leave the small world's origin rune stone for him. This was a very valuable gift. He was well aware that General Yi's idea was that as long as he kept this rune stone, he would definitely be able to rely on the Destiny Circle to win this competition. Furthermore, with this origin rune stone in hand, Wang Ling could wantonly absorb the small world's spirit energy for his own use. Wang Ling had a headache. This was a hot potato for him. He never wanted to attract attention, but if he won this survival contest he was bound to become the center of attention. Senior Ling, is this origin rune stone hurting? Immortal Toya asked as he stared at it. Wang Ling pinched the rune stone, and his hand glowed with light. Immortal Toya then saw the rune stone actually disappear. In fact, Wang Ling had been inspired by the ancient barter array from before. He recalled the barter spell of the 3,000 great spells he had learned, which was actually very similar to the ancient barter array. You could trade what you wanted within a limited area. Still in that large supermarket, Dopey Gua clutched his stomach as he hid in the toilet. His stomach had hurt again when he had gone to look for glassware earlier. In the end, he had run into the toilet in a hurry, only to realize that there wasn't even any toilet paper around him. Dopey Gua fumbled around in his storage bag for a long time, and sadly realized that he only had a gift bag of snacks next to him. He had risked his life to loot it when the airdrop had fallen at the entrance of the supermarket. But as master of Dopey, a master was a master in the end. At that moment, Dopey Gua quickly thought of the crispy noodle snacks in the gift bag which had a card collection card. He could use this card in place of toilet paper. Thinking this, Dopey Gua hurriedly took out the crispy noodle snacks in excitement. But the moment he took it out, the crispy noodle snacks in his hand flashed with spirit light and turned into a shell-like rune stone. Chapter 238. It was June 16th on Thursday in the 8th week of the semester. The survival contest portion of the week-long military training exercise for the 6 schools finally came to an end as the last blue circle shrank. This was a little unexpected, because up until the last blue circle shrank, there were still more than 4,000 students struggling bitterly in the narrow, already very small, safe area. In the end, most of them had been poisoned to death by the last shrinking of the poisonous fog. On this day, the sun was shining brightly and the wind was gentle. In the big square of the military training base in the western suburbs of Songhai City, Ajwa of the General Administration of 100 schools stood on the podium to announce the final result. The final number of people remaining in this survival contest is 1. Student Hiro Gua of number 60 high school, who was in the toilet at the time, is the final winner. Then, Ajwa and Immortal Toya on the side started to applaud. Unfortunately, this ending was really too frightening. For a moment, the 10,000 students, the headmasters of the 6 schools, and Secretary.com were all stupefied, and there was an awkward silence. For some reason, the headmasters of number 59 high school and number 60 high school on the winning side couldn't be happy at all. Student Hiro Gua, on the other hand, had been forced to withdraw from the military training after leaving the small world because of unbearable abdominal pain, and had been sent to the emergency department of the city hospital. Ajwa was a little embarrassed. He cleared his throat and said into the microphone, "Now because student hero Guo is unable to attend, number 60 high school's teacher in charge of grade 1 class 3, teacher Pan Xingtsong, will come on stage to receive the medal and trophy on his behalf." Of all the people present, teacher Pan was probably the only one smiling like a sunflower. Under everyone's gazes, this middle-aged woman with a ponytail, number 60 high school's teaching pioneer, jumped onto the stage in 2 or 3 steps and happily took the trophy. She looked happier than if she had won the Golden Rooster Award for Best Actress. "Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your support and encouragement. This trophy and this banner belong to our number 59 high school and number 60 high school." Who knew if it was because of teacher Pan's excitement, but at that moment, there was finally some sporadic applause in the hall. Taking advantage of this enthusiasm, Audiobook continued, "Now teacher Pan, please unfurl this banner which has been personally inscribed by Secretary Dakong of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools." Okay. Teacher Pan nodded and slowly unfurled the silk banner. Suddenly, everyone saw what seemed to be 10,000 rays of golden light shooting out from the gilded characters on the silk banner. Secretary Dakong had used great magic to write these words on the banner. The instant the banner was unfurled, there was a dazzling light so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. Standing in the crowd, Wang Ling's heavenly eye wasn't affected by the golden light. His gaze pierced through the layers of golden light and instantly saw the large golden characters printed on the silk banner. Goli Wang Ling. The military training was not over yet. In the next few days, it would be comprehensive training. Standing in military posture, standing at attention, resting, none of these could escape. Over the next few days, Dopey Guo became a well-known figure among the 6 schools. Relying on the Destiny Circle to win the competition, his luck was simply too good. The most important thing was that Dopey Guo had received the attention of all sectors of society after he passed the joint military training exercise of the 6 schools. In the future, his path to higher education would be smooth sailing. From what Wang Ling had heard, it was said that a number of universities had already extended olive branches to Dopey Guo's family in advance. In the eyes of many university presidents, while strength and talent were certainly very important on the path of cultivation, luck was often also a part of strength. That night, after returning from the military training, Wang Ling saw a message on the public platform of the Alliance of 10,000 Schools. Secretary Dakong wanted to inscribe something on the trophy for Dopey Guo, but he hadn't thought of what to inscribe, so he had used the public platform to ask for comments. Wang Ling swept his finger over the screen and saw that there were a lot of replies in the selected comments. Among them there were Chinibu comments such as, "The Chosen One, Dopey Nicholas." There were also funny comments such as, "King of Squats, the strongest king of squats, Mother Wan's victim." The comment with the highest number of votes was the one written by Super Chin himself, "King of 60 hypocrites." Wang Ling saw that this comment had received more than 8,000 likes in total. While Wang Ling was away, the Wang family's small villa hadn't been idle. On the morning that the results of the survival contest were announced, a black car drove up to the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. A man with slicked back hair and goggles got out of the car at the entrance of the villa. He was carrying a briefcase in his hand. "This is where Senior Ling lives." Standing at the entrance of the villa, Dharmaraja was a little excited. Apart from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Immortal Toya, he was the 3rd person in the entire chat group to come to the Wang family's house. Similarly, before coming to the villa, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had repeatedly exhorted him to go there with the reverence of a senior. Standing at the entrance, Dharmaraja pressed the doorbell. Very quickly, he heard faint footsteps on the other side of the door. Grandfather Wang had come to open the door. "Who is it?" As soon as he opened the door, Dharmaraja's eyes straightaway twitched violently. He had heard grenade-throwing Senior Immortal say that apart from Ling Jinren, there were 3 seniors in this villa. The most unfathomable of them all was an old man. Dharmaraja never thought that he would actually run into this great senior on his first visit. Thus, as soon as they met, Dharmaraja straightaway bowed deeply at a 90-degree angle. "Old Senior Wang, hello. Senior, a while ago. Ling Jinren left a spirit sword here for repair, and this junior has specially come to deliver it to him. I'll thank you for your hard work. Come in and take a seat. Come in and change into your slippers and remember to close the door." The old man responded and slowly entered the house with his hands clasped behind his back. He then went to the kitchen to make a cup of tea and brought it to Dharmaraja. Mom Ling has gone out to buy groceries and Dad Ling is still in the study going over a manuscript with his. Dharmaraja took the tea from the old man with some trepidation. So Senior Ling's father is a writer? The old man nodded. His pen name is Wang Situ. What the hell? Wang Situ? Lightning Dharmaraja was stupefied. He remembered reading the stuff this guru had written when he had taken the subway to work. He had never expected this person to be Senior Ling's father. I was just writing for fun at first, but I never thought that I would be able to earn money. Grandfather Wang smiled slightly. Hearing this, Dharmaraja's awe of Father Wang deepened. He was just writing for fun, but he could actually earn money. After all, this was a great senior hiding behind the scenes. Sure enough, he was a talent in every aspect. Furthermore, Dharmaraja remembered listening to a recorded interview with Father Wang. Not only was he a talent, he also had a nice way of speaking. He really liked it. Chapter 239. Actually, Dharmaraja was well aware that there were actually a lot of experts in the cultivation circle who liked to retire behind the scenes these days. For example, in the secular world, some people were willing to give up all their fame and fortune for the sake of immortality. In the cultivation circle, there were naturally old seniors who envied ordinary people's ordinary lives and planned to live in seclusion in the secular world. These old seniors who lived in seclusion in the secular world generally felt that cultivation was all for naught in the end. Even if they cultivated to be immortal, it didn't mean anything. People would always get tired of living. If there really was someone who was immortal, that would be terrifying. The reason why Dharmaraja admired Father Wang so much was that this senior had completely chosen to blend into the secular world and go to the bottom of society to earn money and live in the secular world. Dharmaraja didn't think he could do this alone. Many cultivators had jobs in the secular world, but most of these jobs were for their peers in the cultivation circle. For example, Dharmaraja used the godly thunder inheritance to repair magic weapons, but he still earned money from cultivators. Father Wang, on the other hand, had managed to do both with just one book. Dharmaraja was especially shaken. Sure enough, a great senior was a great senior. Magic light shone everywhere he went. Dharmaraja respectfully picked up the cup of tea which Grandfather Wang had handed him. When he saw his face reflected in the steaming tea, he instantly fell silent. He knew that when grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had come to visit the Wang family's small villa back then, Grandfather Wang had served him a bowl of tomato egg soup and a broccoli. To this day, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal still hadn't understood the morality behind it. Now this old senior had served him a cup of tea. What on earth was the meaning of this cup of tea? The scene fell silent. Holding the cup of tea, Dharmaraja was silent for a long time, unable to bear to take a sip. He wanted to take this cup of tea back to study it. Dharmaraja sat in the Wang family's small villa until noon. Seeing that Mother Wang was about to come back with groceries, the old man insisted that Dharmaraja stay for lunch. Dharmaraja felt overwhelmed by this old senior's invitation, and didn't dare refuse at all. It wasn't long before Dharmaraja heard movement outside the door. A woman carrying several bags of groceries swiftly opened the door and flew in like a spy before swiftly closing the door behind her. The old man was startled by the noise. What's going on? Wang Ma listened to the movement outside the door, made a shushing gesture and whispered, "Dad, it seems that someone is following me." "Follow you?" Old man Wang frowned. "Yeah." Mother Wang nodded. "It seems like he's been following me for a long time. When I was buying groceries, I felt like a pair of eyes was staring at me." At this point, Mother Wang turned her gaze to Dharmaraja. Who are you?" "I'm here on Senior Ling's orders to deliver the repaired spirit sword." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Senior. Please advise me." Dharmaraja bowed deeply to Mother Wang. Mother Wang suddenly understood. "So you're Dharmaraja. Ling Ling mentioned you before." Dharmaraja was so moved that a thin layer of mist immediately formed under his goggles. He never thought that Senior Ling would actually mention him to the other great seniors outside of their daily lives. What an honor this was. Dharmaraja wiped away his tears of excitement. Seeing Mother Wang's worried expression as she looked outside the door, he used his heavenly eye to look through his goggles. Sure enough, he spotted a furtive figure on the side of the road. "Seniors, I see that person." The man was wearing sunglasses and a gray windbreaker, and he exuded a dangerous aura. Almost at the same time that Dharmaraja's heavenly eye tracked the figure, the man in sunglasses instantly raised his head. He was already fully aware that he had been discovered, but he didn't panic at all. His gaze met Dharmaraja's indifferent gaze, and a few seconds later, Dharmaraja's eyes widened in shock. Not good. Then he was shaken by the look in the other party's eyes, and he stumbled back several steps. After taking off his goggles, Dharmaraja realized that his eyes were bloodshot. This was an expert. It seems that he's an expert. Old man Wang sighed silently. It was clear that the person following Mother Wang didn't have good intentions. Damn it. Dharmaraja took out a pill to calm his spirit energy fluctuations and quickly swallowed it, then used the power of the godly thunder inheritance to protect his injured eyes. He realized that not only was the person outside very strong, he was also very cunning. That gaze just now had directly pierced the top of his skull, directly numbing his optic nerves and causing intermittent bloodshot fits. If it wasn't for the pill and the godly thunder inheritance, Dharmaraja felt that if it was someone else, their heavenly eye might have been crippled. After that exchange just now, Dharmaraja already had an assessment of this person's strength. He had already lost in a contest of auras, and this was no longer a fight he could intervene in at his level. Furthermore, Dharmaraja realized that this person's heavenly eye was extraordinary, and gave him a strong sense of deterrence. Although he couldn't be 100% sure, Dharmaraja felt that this person had probably refined his heavenly eye into a magic weapon to increase its lethality. Dharmaraja had already heard from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal in the chat group that this method of refining a part of the body into a magic weapon was the work of a dark force that had been causing trouble for Senior Wang's family recently. Thus, Dharmaraja guessed that this person was probably from Immortal Mansion. But now, what should he do? Did the seniors in the Wang family's small villa have to personally take action? As Dharmaraja sat cross-legged on the ground to regulate his breathing, he turned to look at old man Wang next to him and sighed slightly. Senior, I'm very sorry. This person is really too powerful. He was a little vexed. He had wanted to do his best to show off in front of so many seniors. No, you've already done very well. The old man smiled slightly. You're a guest and this person is obviously here for us. It's only right that we deal with this trouble ourselves. The old man lowered his voice in a magnetic tone. Wang Ling had gone to participate in the school's military training, and even Loopy Toad had been picked up by their teacher in charge and wouldn't be back for a while. Perhaps in the eyes of those forces with ulterior motives toward the Wang family, this was a window of opportunity for them to come and cause trouble. Dad. At that moment, father and daughter's gazes met, and they actually felt a telepathic connection at the same time. There's no other way, the old man sighed in his heart. Since they had deliberately come to cause trouble, a fight was unavoidable. With his hands behind his back and his eyelids slightly lowered, there was actually something mysterious about his old eyes. Old Senior Wang was going to make a move? Dharmaraja was extremely astonished. But he realized that things weren't that simple. Old man Wang silently walked over to the door and put his hand on the doorknob. Almost the instant he opened the door, the old man's gaze swiftly turned to the second floor, and he shouted with great boldness, "Open the door! Let Jinka out!" Chapter 240. 10 minutes ago, a man in black sunglasses and a gray windbreaker had followed Mother Wang to the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. The man was tall and sturdy, and a beret covered his big bald head. At first glance he looked a little like those muscular men in foreign movies. It's here. Under the sunglasses, the man narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction of the villa. He pulled open his lapel and pulled out the earpiece hidden inside to report the situation. Chief, I found the target's location, just like the lady of the castle said. The voice on the other end of the earpiece was very low. You did well, little Tan. Find out the truth about this family. Also, it's best if you can clearly investigate their relationship with that hawthorn tree. This has to do with Master's year-end assessment of me, so you can't be careless. The man nodded. Don't worry, Chief. According to the information we gathered from various sources, the youth that Xiao Yu fought last time lives in this villa. It said that he only used one finger to catch the 50-fold power of Little Yu's abyss avoidance slash. Hearing this, the man couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. The Little Yu the chief was talking about was a genius whom Master had carefully selected from 10,000 people, and was also his trusted aide. Back then, Master had personally given him abyss avoidance at Immortal Mansion's annual party. This was a spirit sword that ranked first in speed on the historical cultivation list of swords. No matter what, we have to be careful today. Apart from us, the southern, northern and western branches of Immortal Talisman are also looking for this family. The lady of the castle from Mo Immortal Castle is an informant that I had arranged for many years ago. Since our eastern branch has gotten hold of this information first, we have to make good use of it. The call ended here. The man adjusted his beret and heaved a sigh of relief. This was because before he had made the call, He had already used his spiritual senses to carefully sense that that terrifying youngster didn't seem to be in the villa today. During the call, there had actually been a reckless person who had dared to glare at him with his heavenly eye. During the call with the chief, he had also opened his heavenly eye to retaliate, directly making the other party's eyes bloodshot. As the only fighting strength disappeared, the man looked in the direction of the villa and sneered. The man who had used the heavenly eye on him earlier should be the only combat power he could sense in this villa. Now that this person was injured, the man was certain that there would be no other unstable factors in this villa. Didn't this mean that he could do whatever he wanted in this mission? However, just as the man stepped into the entrance of the Wang family's small villa, he realized that the door of the villa was actually open. Then, the shadow of a brown sword shot out from the door. How fast could a spiritual sword be? The man called Xiao Tan felt that his worldview had been refreshed once again. Because his eyes were very special, the man had chosen the path of refining his eyes the year he joined Immortal Mansion. When he opened his third eye, his power would be dozens of times greater than that of an ordinary third eye, and he would be able to exert his dynamic vision to the extreme. However, when this brown sword shadow dashed out of the door, he was shocked to find that his eyes could not catch it at all. As the sword light approached infinitely, the man was so startled that he broke out in a cold sweat under his beret. However, the approaching brown sword shadow stopped about 10 centimeters away from the man. He saw the sword shadow dissipate into streaks of light before finally condensing into a human figure. It was actually a child in a brown and white robe, with short gray bangs dancing in the wind as he stared coldly at the man. This was a sword spirit? The man stared at this scene in disbelief. Unless the owner summoned a sword spirit on the spot through a contract, it was very rare for a sword spirit to manifest on its own under normal circumstances. The man felt that he had miscalculated. He had only focused on using his spiritual senses to sense a person's aura, but had overlooked a situation like the appearance of a magic treasure's weapon spirit. Whether it was a spirit sword spirit or a magic treasure's weapon spirit, all of their auras were sealed in the vessel before they manifested themselves, so it was very easy for people to overlook them. But he didn't have time to think about it now. Jinka was already walking toward him. The man activated his third eye power to the extreme, and his pupils blossomed like a kaleidoscope. As he released the power of his third eye, golden blades appeared in the air, which finally condensed into a storm that spun like an electric drill as it stabbed toward Jinka. These blades were made of spirit light formed from the spirit energy of heaven and earth, and were a product of the spirit energy of heaven and earth. They didn't have destructive power but were exceptionally sturdy. Combined with the third eye power, they formed a storm which was a devastating blow. This power was very impressive, and Dharmaraja in the villa was shocked to see it. If it hit him, it would definitely leave a big hole in his body. In the face of this storm of spirit light, Jinka's expression didn't change in the slightest. Maintaining his indifferent attitude, he walked step by step toward the center of the storm. From his position in the villa, Dharmaraja could clearly see Jinka's figure, and he felt that this sword spirit's eyes were very similar to Ling Jinren's. Ding. Ding ding ding. Ding ding ding. The storm wrapped around Jinka and exploded into violent collisions, but Jinka's sword light kept it all at bay. The man was shocked. He could clearly see how powerful this sword spirit was, but he never thought that his attack wouldn't have any effect at all. He opened his third eye and increased his third eye power, and 2 streams of blood flowed from the corners of his eyes. Looking at this scene, Jinka stood motionless in the middle of the storm of spirit light. Then, with a snap of his fingers, a brown sword light burst out of Jinka's body. This scene was like the descent of a miracle. This frightening storm of spirit light was actually forcibly parted by Jinka, as if parting the sea to create a safe passage in the middle. Jinka saw the man's jaw drop, but his expression didn't change in the slightest as he walked along the passage toward the man. In the end, Jinka reached the man, and there was a huge contrast in their heights. The man was tall and sturdy at 190 centimeters. But Jinka wasn't tall and only reached a little above the man's waist. Whether from afar or up close, he was just a child. However, there was no pressure from his aura. Just looking at the brown sword light gradually approaching Jinka, the man was already so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He was scared out of his wits, and even his knees couldn't help trembling. Chapter 241. By now, the man from Immortal Mansion's eastern branch had completely realized that this was a meaningless fight, because he had no chance of winning from the very beginning. "You're from Immortal Mansion?" At that moment, the man heard a rough questioning voice from beside him. It carried a thick sense of heaviness, and a huge shadow loomed over him. He saw two strong men with muscles as big as Jinhua hams appear in front of him, and they were even taller than him. Where on earth had these two come from? No, wait. There seemed to be another person. Startled, the man looked up and saw that in addition to these two muscular men, there was also a little girl in a gray robe with pink-haired buns. She was sitting on the shoulder of one of the men, her head cocked to one side as she looked at him. The man was already completely confused. It wasn't just this sword spirit. These three people who had come out of nowhere all had auras stronger than his. If the man was given another chance, he just wanted to call his superior and tell him, "Chief, I don't want to play anymore." It wasn't a matter of whether he wanted to play or not, he couldn't beat them at all. There's no other way. The burly man from Immortal Mansion felt hopeless. The situation had exceeded his expectations time and time again, and was completely out of his control. Now he could only think of a way to escape. Fortunately, he had made sufficient preparations before coming here. He had prepared an Earth Escape talisman. As long as he had this talisman, even if these people were stronger than him, as long as the immortal talisman was successfully activated, he would have a chance to escape. At that moment, the man's mind was filled with countless thoughts, but it only lasted for a moment. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that this terrifying sword spirit hadn't completely surrounded him with the other three people on the other side to escape. He quickly formed a seal with his hands and threw out the burrowing talisman that he had prepared in advance. The moment the magic light shone, the ground under the man's feet suddenly turned into a mass of quicksand, and his whole body quickly sank into the sand. To ensure that he wouldn't be caught, he even cast a divine speed formula on himself. This was a high-grade heaven-grade spirit technique used to increase speed, and was also a secret body movement technique of Immortal Mansion. Under the effect of this divine speed formula, the man's speed increased by 5 times on the basis of the Earth Escape Talisman's escape speed. He felt that with his current speed he should be able to pull away from the 4 of them. Supported by the magic light of the Earth Escape Talisman, his figure was swiftly sucked into the wheel of quicksand under his feet, and he disappeared on the spot. Seeing that the burrowing talisman had taken effect, the man who had already burrowed into the ground along with the light let out a sigh of relief. However, the Earth Escape Talisman was forced to stop halfway. The man saw a little girl's face appear in the underground tunnel ahead. The little girl stared straight at him, then reached out with her little hands and pulled him out from the ground. Less than 10 seconds after the man used the burrowing talisman to escape, Sheep bounced back from afar. Jinka saw that her little hand was holding a dog leash which was directly connected to the collar around the man's neck. Pen and Eraser were startled because it was Father Wong who had bought this collar and leash for Loopy Toad. Because Loopy Toad had always been unwilling to wear them, it had hidden them in the attic after buying them. Who knew when they had been tossed into Sheep's hands? Sheep's little hand gripped the dog leash as she threw the man in front of the 2 big men and straddled him. How boring. He's so slow. I even specially went upstairs to get the collar and leash just now. I didn't expect him to run so fast. The man wanted to cry a little. So it turned out that there was a bunch of big shots living in this villa that he couldn't sense? Jinka crouched down and pressed one hand against the man's forehead. The man was instantly drenched in sweat and felt like he was about to be executed. The pressure Jinka put on him was too great. There clearly wasn't a trace of spiritual pressure on him and he was just staring at him, but it felt like he was staring at death. Jinka had already sensed the other party's aura in their previous exchange, but he hadn't been very sure. After careful comparison, Jinka was now certain that this man was from Immortal Mansion. The scent of spirit energy on him was exactly the same as that of the red-haired young man who had fought the old devil with the Abyss Avoidance sword at the entrance of Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's house. Then Jinka raised his hand. Several balls of brown sword chi gathered in his fingers, and he slapped the man on the head. He used sword chi to seal the man's spirit acupuncture points, and for a very long time, the man wouldn't be able to use spirit energy. Lord Jinka, how should we deal with him? Pen and Eraser, the 2 big men, looked at Jinka. Ling don't like troublesome. Jinka looked at the man on the ground. You guys deal with him. I want to rest for a while. Now that the man was caught and his spirit energy was sealed, Jinka couldn't be bothered to deal with him anymore, and would leave the rest to the others. He yawned, and the sword light around him surged again before finally turning back into a sword which fell into the hands of a big man on the side. Put me back on the bed. Pen and Eraser, the man rubbed his eyes. When he saw Jinka change back into his original form, he thought he was seeing things. In the end, he was stupefied once again because he never expected such a powerful sword spirit's true form to actually be a peachwood spirit sword that could be found everywhere on the market. How should we deal with him? Throw him into the toilet? Pen asked with a sigh as he put Jinka away and looked at the man on the ground. Throwing him into the toilet doesn't seem like a good idea. Eraser shook his head. This immortal mansion has come looking for trouble time and time again. It's not easy to catch them, and we can ask them about their background. Pen, but Master isn't here now. It's fine, I saved Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's number, I'm sure he'll be interested. Saying this, Eraser took out his phone and dialed a number. Soon, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's magnetic voice came from the other end of the line. Hello, I'm Grenade-throwing. What can I do for you, Your Excellency? Is this Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal? I'm Ling Jinren's enlightened spirit Eraser. Just now, we caught someone from Immortal Mansion trying to break into the Wang family's villa. Are you interested in coming? The big man asked. Oh, so it's you. I know you. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal laughed. Now that you mention it, I suddenly remember that Dharmaraja went to your place today to deliver a sword. Didn't Dharmaraja make a move? Eraser was silent for a bit, then decided to tell the truth. The person from Immortal Mansion was very strong. Before Senior Dharmaraja could make a move, his aura backlashed him. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, before they even fought, he lost. Unfortunately, Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, that's the truth. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath and dropped his forehead into his hand. Tell him to leave the group. It's too shameful. Chapter 242. If Dharmaraja had not seen it with his own eyes, he would never have imagined that there were so many big shots hidden in the villa besides these three seniors. That gray-robed girl with pink bun hair was absolutely terrifying. When she moved, she looked like a ray of light that flew everywhere. Not even Digga dared to do this. There were also two muscular men beside the little girl. One of them was wearing a straw hat, while the other was wearing a suit of armor. Their bodies were muscular and their bones were thick and sturdy. They stood there as mighty as mountains, giving off a strong sense of oppression. Dharmaraja shrunk his neck and his gaze fell on the old man next to him. Senior Wang, may I ask who these three seniors are? Oh, you mean them? The old man scratched his head. These were all enchanted by Ling Ling. The one in the straw hat was originally Eraser, the one in the armor was originally Pen, and the little girl was originally a tricycle. Lei painted and waxed her not long ago. Dharmaraja was dumbfounded. There was actually such a thing? No wonder this little girl wouldn't let go of the tire in her hand. While they were discussing this with Grandfather Wang, Sheep had already dragged the man from Immortal Mansion into the villa at the entrance. This guy's spirit acupuncture points had all been sealed by Jinka, and he was now even more ordinary than an ordinary person. Apart from being a little bigger, there was nothing good about him, and he probably couldn't even beat Mother Wang, a middle-aged woman at the body condensation stage. As the man was dragged through the door, he opened his mouth wide and let out muffled sounds. Dharmaraja was very puzzled. His spirit acupoints have been sealed, how come he can't even speak? Oh, I just sealed his tongue acupoint. Eraser replied, let's leave the interrogation to Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. We're all amateurs. Dharmaraja was shocked again. You called Senior over? That's right, Little Master Ling told us before that Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal has been investigating Immortal Mansion all along. He had long since anticipated that these people from Immortal Mansion would lose their cool and come looking for trouble at the villa, so he had already told us beforehand that if we encountered them, we would capture them on the spot and then help Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal investigate them. So that's how it is? Dharmaraja nodded his head and admired Wang Ling even more in his heart. Ling Jinren, in the end, had even calculated this step. As expected, his foresight was miraculous. Oh, by the way, what else did the Supreme say? After coming back to his senses, Fu Wang had a grin on his face again. He felt that since he had personally come to deliver the sword, Senior should at least give him some praise. Eraser sank into silence once again. He hadn't planned to say anything at first, because he knew that Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was just joking. But since it had come to this, he finally decided to answer Dharmaraja's doubts. After thinking for a moment, Eraser said bluntly, Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal wants you to leave the group. We haven't even started fighting and we've already suffered a backlash. This is too embarrassing. As a man he had a big body and a big heart. That was how upright he was. Dharmaraja's cheeks streamed with tears. So, perfected immortal hated him? As soon as he said this, Sheep, who was riding the man from Immortal Mansion like he was a horse, gave Dharmaraja a strange look. She seemed to have heard something shattering. After that, there was the sound of stir-frying in the kitchen as Grandfather Wang and Mother Wang personally cooked. Thinking that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal would be coming over later, the old man stewed all the broccoli he had stockpiled last time into a pot of soup. There were also a lot of people sitting in the living room of the Wang family's villa. Pen and Eraser had initially planned to directly change back to their original forms after carrying out the task, but they had to wait for grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to hand over the task before it could truly be considered over. So until then they still maintained their human forms. The old man had in fact never regarded these gremlins, who had been enlightened by Wang Ling as outsiders, and had very politely invited them to have lunch together. So at noon that day the Wang family's living room was especially lively. Eraser, Pen, Sheep and Dharmaraja were playing werewolf in the living room, while Sheep sat on the bound man from Immortal Mansion as a cushion. Apart from the three of you, there should be other seniors who have been enlightened by Ling Jinren in the villa, right? Dharmaraja took a look at his ID card and asked weakly while playing cards. We don't deserve to be called seniors. We're just gremlins who have been enlightened by Little Master Ling and can't cultivate. The strength of our realms is completely up to our master. Lord Dharmaraja has relied on his own efforts to cultivate step by step to reach this stage. You're the great senior. Eraser laughed and was very humble. Of course we aren't the only ones who have been enlightened in the villa, but apart from us, there are very few who can take human form. The only ones left are Lord Pen Immortal and Lord Ma. These two are Lightning Dharmaraja. Lord Pen's spirit's ability is similar to Lord Ma's. Lord Pen's spirit only needs to draw a circle to bring a person to any location. However, it's limited to a location that can be detected in the current world. The effect is similar to a teleportation door. The effect is similar to a portal, and the spaces that Lord Ma connects to are all extremely dangerous places, possibly alternate dimensions. Once you're sucked into one you might never come back, Eraser explained. Hearing this, Dharmaraja felt like his worldview had been refreshed. Ling Jinren was actually this strong. The magic treasures he had casually enlightened all had such formidable abilities. I have one more question. Dharmaraja took a deep breath. He felt that he had touched upon some taboo topic, but he really couldn't resist his desire to gossip. Do the three of you know Lord Jinka's origin? Oh, you mean Lord Jinka? I thought Senior Dharmaraja was going to ask some strange question. Eraser chuckled. Actually, Jinka's background was already no longer a secret. When grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had come to the Wang family's small villa back then, Grandfather Wang had explained Jinka's background in less than 10 seconds in one go. Lord Jinka, Little Master Ling's father, bought this from the flower and bird market back then, Eraser answered succinctly. Dharmaraja. That's it? That's right, that's it. Eraser nodded and said, also it's 998 yuan, a fair deal. Dharmaraja really wanted to calm down now. About 15 minutes later, Mother Wang and the old man had already prepared lunch. Dharmaraja estimated the time and felt that Senior Immortal would be at the villa's entrance soon. He raised his head and looked upstairs. Should I call Lord Pen Immortal and Lord Ma down for lunch? Well, that's not necessary. Eraser shook his head. Lord Pen Immortal has a problem, and that's that he's very sleepy. It's best not to disturb him when he's sleeping. Dharmaraja. Then, what about Lord Ma? Hearing this, Pen, Eraser and Sheep all had horrified expressions on their faces. Senior Dharmaraja, are you willing to eat with the toilet? Chapter 243. After all this time, it turned out that this Lord Ma was actually referring to the toilet. Dharmaraja really wanted to bang his head against the wall. What the hell was this Lord Ma? He already felt that he couldn't keep up with these great seniors' train of thought. Could it be that cultivation nowadays didn't just rely on talent, but also on imagination? Dharmaraja sank into deep thought. In fact, there were a lot of things that Wang Ling had enchanted in passing in the Wang family's small villa. In addition to Lord Ma, there was also Lord Bao. It was just that this Lord Bao couldn't take on a human form, so Eraser had automatically ignored him. Lord Bao's original form was a donkey brand bag. This was Father Wang's gift to Mother Wang for her 20th wedding anniversary. In order to allow her to carry more things when she went shopping, Wang Ling had blessed this bag on the day he had given it to her. Lord Bao was very resourceful. Apart from helping Mother Wang carry a lot of things if she ran into any trouble on the road, she could directly burrow into Lord Bao's storage space. In short, Lord Bao's space was so much more practical than Doraemon's. His skin was sturdier than Long John's. While Dharmaraja was contemplating life after witnessing all sorts of strange things in the Wang family's small villa, a beam of light approached the villa from the sky. Then, a man in white with beautiful hair descended from the sky. It was none other than grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. He carried an unknown immortal sword on his back, and at his waist were still those very dangerous-looking gray skybomb grenades. This was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's standard when he went out. But if he took the subway in this getup, he would definitely be arrested on the spot. That skybomb grenade was a secret weapon unique to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's family. Anyone who had seen it before could see its destructive power and ferocity. Furthermore, it was a hidden weapon and ranked first on the list of hidden weapons that could injure a soul formation cultivator. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal? Yo, hello everyone. Greetings, Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Eraser and Pen got up to greet him. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal? Shit. Why do I notice that your color has faded again? Come back to Uncle's place, Uncle will wax and paint your body. Yes. Sheep clapped her hands happily. As soon as he entered, he greeted Pen, Eraser and Sheep with a hearty smile. Then he saw Fuang at the side and his smile froze. Then he chose to ignore it on the spot. He turned around and carried the big bags of broccoli he had brought with him to the kitchen to get close to Grandfather Wang and Mother Wang. After about 2 or 3 minutes of small talk, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal came out of the kitchen. The expression on his face was much more relaxed than before. Senior Immortal. Dharmaraja raised his hand in greeting. When they had entered earlier, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had directly ignored him, which made him feel a little embarrassed. You, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at the man from Immortal Mansion whose acupoints had been sealed on the ground, then looked at Dharmaraja and sighed a little exasperatedly. As the successor of the Godly Thunder inheritance, it's one thing if you don't cultivate hard, but every day you think about making extra money in the Shao family compound. You have the Godly Thunder innate in your hands, but you still lost to this kind of trash's aura. This is the consequence of not making progress. Dharmaraja was speechless and fell into silence. Because that was the truth. As a descendant of the 12 ancient clans, he was the only surviving descendant of the Thunder clan, and also the sole heir to the Thunder clan's holy relic. After all, the Godly Thunder inheritance was the only holy relic that had completely evolved from the Great Dochi period. It could be driven by spiritual energy alone. Dharmaraja had always felt that the Thunder clan's glory couldn't be restored by relying on himself, so all these years he had been relying on the Thunder clan's name to make money with the help of the Godly Thunder inheritance. Dharmaraja had thought that even if he didn't cultivate, he would still be able to obtain great power by relying on this holy relic. But after coming to the Wang family's small villa today, he realized that he really was just a frog at the bottom of a well. He was really too insignificant. I won't say too much. In the future you have to work even harder at cultivating. Ling Jinren is our goal. Seeing that Dharmaraja was reflecting on his actions with his head down, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal couldn't be bothered to say more. When all was said and done, the people in the group were his brothers and sisters. Sometimes there was no need to speak too harshly, and it was enough to stop where it was appropriate. Everyone was at the soul formation stage and was working hard to break through to the void refinement stage, so they had a rough idea of what was going on. Senior grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, you came just in time. This is the person from Immortal Mansion that we caught. Furthermore, he's probably a cadre. His spirit acupuncture point has already been sealed by Lord Jinka. Eraser pointed at the man under Sheep's buttocks. It's really been hard on you this time. It's also thanks to Brother Ling's foresight, knowing that this bunch of people would definitely come looking for trouble. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled, which looked especially sunny. Actually, even if we hadn't caught this tongue today, Brother Ling would have found a way to find Immortal Mansion's stronghold when he came back. Back then, Brother Ling buried a bomb in the abyss avoidance sword of that red-haired Immortal Mansion youngster at my house so he could track his position. Eraser and Pen were silent when they heard this because they both knew about this. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had in fact said this deliberately for this man to hear. After that, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stretched out a finger and directly unsealed the man's tongue acupuncture point. So now, do you have anything to say? This burly man from Immortal Mansion was very stubborn. I don't have anything to say. Don't even think about getting any information out of me. Also, I advise you not to try to read my memories. We Immortal Mansion people have Master's curse mark on us. If anyone tries to read our memories by force, they'll explode on the spot. When that time comes, you'll all die. Explode on the spot? Are you going to add a Thomas full spin helix into the sky? You dare scare us? Penn snorted and wanted to step forward to teach this man a lesson. But before he could do anything, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stopped him. Wait. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal ran his fingers through his hair and carefully examined the back of the man's neck, then sighed. What he said should be true, there are indeed traces of a curse mark on the back of his neck. Dharmaraja frowned. Then, Senior Immortal, what should we do now? We can only get him to confess himself. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at the man on the ground and said, Do people from Immortal Mansion like to refine some strange part of themselves into a magic weapon? And I heard that this man seems to be extremely confident in his own power. Eraser nodded. His power is indeed very strong. Before Lord Dharmaraja could make a move, his eyes were already bleeding from the shock. Dharmaraja felt like he had been shot in the knee again. Could he not bring this up? It was so shameful. Very good. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal smiled inwardly, then got up and patted Dharmaraja on the shoulder. Dharmaraja, it's time for you to avenge this humiliation. Dharmaraja? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, someone open his eyelids for me. Then Dharmaraja used the godly thunder inheritance to directly blind his dog eyes. Until he confesses. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.